And there's nearly 1,000 miles of interstates across 6 states closed right now. That includes I-90 in South Dakota. Thousands of flights canceled or delayed today. Denver's airport being hit hardest, and other areas also seeing feet of snow, including parts of Minnesota. I'm meteorologist Ray Stajic. We're also going to be tracking a dangerous severe weather threat that's developing. That's going to be this weekend. It's a 50-50 shot. Tornadoes will be developing, and the chances are growing by the hour. We'll look at the threat zone and the timing of it all coming up. But first, the big story, the major, deadly spring storm.
And just listen to those powerful winds well over tropical storm force in central Minnesota. Winter storm warning remains in effect here. Winds so powerful in parts of Minnesota, power lines snapped in half. This is the central part of the state. Nearly 30,000 people still without power at this hour because of these strong winds. Look at that. Just unbelievable conditions across the northern plains. We've got an ongoing major windstorm here. That's not going to end anytime soon. We've got a lot more snow on the way, especially across northern parts of Minnesota. I'm storm specialist Carl Parker, live with you tonight until midnight tonight, until 10 p.m. Central Time, with all the latest on this major spring storm. And this storm is just a beast of a storm. It's got 50-mile-per-hour winds. We've actually seen winds gusting as high as 70 miles per hour in some areas. Here you see a lot of lines of equal pressure right through there. Very tight pressure gradient. That's why you've got so much wind with this thing. Right now, winds gusting to 53 miles per hour in Duluth, now gusting to 37 in Fargo and 37 in Pierre. So this really big, really strong wind field is not going to go away anytime soon. The snow's gradually going to settle down, but we're going to continue to see these blizzard conditions, blizzard being a function of the wind, really, and the visibility. You don't have to have real heavy snow. Certainly that can add to it. But if you've just got very strong wind blowing that snow around, reducing the visibility, that's enough to give you those conditions. Light snow now across a lot of South Dakota. We've got visibilities generally around a half of a mile where the snow is coming down. You get up into northern Minnesota, that's where we're starting to see more of these quarter-mile visibilities. And again, winds gusting over 50 miles per hour in some areas. On a bridge, on the Blotnick Bridge in Duluth, winds actually gusting to 70 miles per hour. That's at elevation. But man, what a day today. We're going to be talking to Dave Malkoff in just a moment. He's in Duluth. And then farther east, getting a little bit of freezing rain now in northern parts of Wisconsin. A lot of wind here too. So here's what we've seen so far in Watertown: 17.5 inches, 18 inches in Dupree, 9.5 in Minneapolis. We've got blizzard warnings still under effect in North and South Dakota, parts of Minnesota, and also in Nebraska. Here's a look at the snow to come that's really going to be centered on northern parts of Minnesota and right around Duluth, an additional potentially 5 to 8 inches on the way here. And again, when you got a storm this powerful, it just doesn't settle down very quickly at all. So the winds are going to continue to howl right through late tonight. This is looking at 1 o'clock in the morning. And in Fargo, we're talking about winds still gusting 40 to 50 miles per hour going through late tonight, 35 to 40 there at 1 o'clock, 45 to 50 around 2 to 3 a.m. 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, still 30 to 35 miles per hour, 25 to 30 in Sioux Falls. Winds light in Minneapolis as the low pressure center is going to be coming right over you. And then even into tomorrow afternoon, we're still seeing those very strong winds, lighter snow showers. Visibility is coming up a little bit, certainly, but it's certainly not going to be pleasant through this region. So as we look at what we've seen so far this season, it has been a very snowy season. I'm sure a lot of you are ready to spit nails at this point. We're up by almost 20 inches in Green Bay, 18.8 in Minneapolis, and in Marquette, 20.4 on the positive side there for the total amount of snow for the season so far. We want to go now to the Weather Channel's Dave Malkoff, live in Duluth, Minnesota. Dave, we were watching your shots earlier today. Just unbelievable conditions out there. Really is like a winter hurricane almost.
It really is, Carl, and those gusts have not stopped. I think the only difference that you're seeing is I'm standing closer to the camera because we have to be lit up since the sun has set. But let me just walk out of the light just for a second so you can see how fast the visibility drops out as I walk back here, and I'm just gonna disappear into these wind gusts, and this seems to be, I would say, 45. Right now, 45 miles an hour of sustained winds, and those 58-mile-an-hour gusts were coming in fast and furious, and we were getting them over and over again. That was accumulating ice right here on Lake Superior. I cannot see Lake Superior at all behind me. I'm not even sure if you can see that concrete structure back there that was built in 1919. That is normally in the water. Now it is in the ice, and I have to keep on shifting my feet back and forth just to stand here because these winds, wow, this is probably the wildest wind that we've seen all day, and it is just bending these trees back and forth right in front of us. Thousands of people are without power in this region because those trees bend and then they start to snap and they take down power lines, or ice accumulates on the power lines. So we're having a lot of problems here, but fortunately they saw this storm coming. They saw the forecast. The city shut down basically all the schools and all the services around here, including some bus services, including some beach fronts. They shut those down to make sure that folks who are not out in all of this. But one thing that did not shut down was the, oh my goodness, it feels like a sandblaster right on my face, is the country concert that is going on not too far from here. That actually went on as scheduled, and some people, they actually got an Uber. So an Uber driver, a very brave Uber driver, came to these hotels and took them over to the concert that just went on as scheduled in the middle of this wild winter storm. We call it a winter storm, but this is definitely April right here, Carl, in the middle of Minnesota, right on the Wisconsin border, and behind me should be the biggest lake in the Great Lakes, Lake Superior, but it is gone, lost in this snowstorm right here.
Wow, just amazing shot there, Dave. I cannot believe that people actually went to a concert tonight in that weather. That is incredible. Dave, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again very soon. Let's get you updated on some of the latest information we're getting in on Wesley. The storm blamed for killing one person in Denver. Slick roads leading to a traffic accident. Storm has cut power to 55,000 customers tonight, and Colorado's governor activated the state's National Guard. Right?
We got some incredible video also coming out of Texas. Check this out. Yeah, something seeing a movie, right? Wind so strong we toppled over that big rig. This was in Amarillo. The driver luckily is okay tonight. Winds gusting to tropical storm force. These gusty winds beginning to ease here in West Texas. They're picking up across parts of Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois. There are still some wind advisories in effect. Some of them will expire within the next hour or so. So hang on that steering wheel on the interstates. Interstate 55, one of them. Maybe going from St. Louis down to Memphis. Yeah, it's going to be a rough one as these winds continue to blow. And if you're taking I-90, here's some of the conditions you're going to be facing. Roads closed, right? Ice, snow, gusty winds. It's part of the highway that's open in Sioux Falls. Most of I-90 west of here is shut down, and most of South Dakota. In fact, there's over 1,000 miles of major interstates closed. So certainly impact not only to us, people moving around, but what about the folks that are moving around goods and services and doing services? Yeah, things like that too. And we've seen hundreds of cancellations also. One of the busiest airports here in Detroit. Delays today, including 3,200. Check with the airline if you do have to fly tomorrow. Places like Denver, Minneapolis, even St. Louis, because of those winds. Could see another round of cancellations and big delays heading into tomorrow. Certainly going to be significant impacts, not only from Wesley, but when you hear about the weekend forecast, that's coming up too. But right now, it's Interstates 90, Interstate 29, and as you said, through North Platte, even parts of Interstate 80 and 76 closed, right? So you can't get on them. Snow and more blowing snow, part of the problem on the backside of this powerful blizzard that is continuing to push on off toward the north and northeast. So blizzard conditions into tonight, heavy wet snow along Interstate 90, gusty thunderstorms to the south, and there's even been some thunder snow, so thunder and lightning with some of the snowfall that's come on through too. So the cancellations right now, nationwide 959. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 518. So certainly going to be an evening where there's going to be a lot of people most likely looking for a place to stay, probably going to stay down at the airport, and most of the delays nationwide now continuing to get up there around 3,500. So plenty of delays and plenty of time to maybe get yourself into a safe place. Well, now let's take you live. We're going into Duluth in Minnesota because we still have the snow coming down. Look at the gusty winds. Visibility down to what? I can't see a thing almost. It's going to stay nasty through the night and through places like Duluth. And as we take a look off to we take a look up to the north, check out Silver Bay, Minnesota. The wind is howling here. And as you can see, we're going to head towards sunset, so certainly it's going to be a very cold night. In some cases, we are going to have some wind around too. So chilly if you do have to step out and head on out maybe to maybe clean up some of that snow that's been falling. And it's still coming down. It's not coming down at the rate that it was earlier. Look at radar right now. You can see the center of low pressure right there's a little spin in the atmosphere. And it continues to slowly walk on off toward the north and northeast. So this thing really isn't moving all that fast. Snow on the north side. There's some of that thunder and lightning with some of that mixed precipitation and snow through Wisconsin. So certainly an interesting night, too, in terms of the dynamics of this storm. And as it continues to roll east, we will eventually, by later tonight, tomorrow, start to see that snow slowly come out of eastern Dakotas and into parts of Minnesota. So notice, even through tomorrow morning, we're still not quite done with it, but through midday into Minnesota, northern parts of Wisconsin, and eventually the UP of Michigan, we will start seeing by 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon that precipitation pulling away. But Minneapolis, you got rain and snow showers tonight. There'll be a fair amount of wind, then maybe a break, and then as we get into the afternoon tomorrow, as the backside of this storm goes through, we may see some more snow and rain showers around also. But in terms of how much is still going to fall, not much, maybe another inch or so. To the north, closer to the low, maybe another 3 or 4 inches. That's certainly possible through the nighttime hours tonight. Now, Duluth, a different story. Probably snowing through the night, maybe even on into tomorrow night with scattered snow showers and potentially some gusty winds with maybe another few inches of snow in this part of the world. Now, this powerful storm is also having a severe side. Watch this. Yeah, that's a lightning strike in Omaha. That's pretty impressive.
It's a positive strike.
Yeah. Thunder, lightning, yeah. Blasted some areas in Nebraska last night. And that complex of storms moved on as winter storm Wesley's warm side moves on and moves out. We're bracing for a new round of severe weather in the south. Carl, we could be looking at a multi-day severe weather event over the weekend.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, this is the time of year when we start really thinking about tornadoes, and not just any tornadoes, but strong tornadoes. And that's going to be a possibility by the time we get into Saturday in parts of Texas, Louisiana, and also into Mississippi. We're looking at some threat for severe weather tonight. Not a real high threat, but there will be some severe storms possible. We've got some lightning out there. Certainly, you've got a little boundary that's now coming through St. Louis right in there. So we had some brief gusty winds. There's a lot of wind in the atmosphere in general, so even if these storms aren't terribly strong, they can tap into that. We might get some occasional severe thunderstorm warnings, but again, not a real high threat for severe weather, and it's primarily going to be damaging wind. Now, going into the weekend, things are going to be very different. We're going to watch a pretty intense cyclone coming across Texas. It's going to grab up a lot of moisture off the Gulf of Mexico, so a lot of fuel for developing storms. We like to look at what's called instability, or convective available potential energy, and that's a measure of that low-level warm and humid air, along with how cold it gets as you go up through the atmosphere, because the difference between the temperature at the surface and what's going on aloft, that means you're going to get more of a rising motion and stronger thunderstorms developing. We certainly do have plenty of instability going into Saturday. Now, another really critical part of what's going to happen on Saturday is this really strong low-level jet that starts to kick in here across parts of Texas and Louisiana and into Mississippi. And you've got these strong winds that are coming out of the south at about a mile up in the atmosphere. This is looking at the surface winds. And here we're looking at Saturday evening. So surface winds coming out of the east there in parts of Mississippi, just like that, and then coming out of the southeast in Louisiana. And then winds at 5,000 feet are coming out of the south. So they're coming out of different directions. And when they do that, you get a lot of spin in the atmosphere between those layers. And when storms evolve in that environment, they start to acquire that spin. They begin to spin. That's the beginning of the process that leads to tornadoes. And the greater the contrast, the directional shear, the greater the difference in the vectors, the wind vectors, the more potential you have for that low-level shear. So that's a big part of why we think there could be tornadoes come Saturday. So here's a look at Saturday's forecast. You see the sort of bullseye there centered on the Arklatex as well as the northern part of Louisiana. Right now in the Torcon, we've got a 6 out of 10. So that's definitely an elevated number, and it may even come up a notch by the time we get towards Saturday. We've also got a 4 out of 10, all of Mississippi, eastern Texas, all of Louisiana, and southern Arkansas, but it's really centered on that area in the northern parts of Texas. I'm going to go back to that very quickly, and right there into northeast Texas, northern Louisiana. That's the area that we're most concerned about for the possibility of tornadoes. And then right on top of that, we could be looking at some very heavy rain developing lower Mississippi Valley.
All right, so no reason not to stay tuned through the weekend. We're going to be live till 12 o'clock Eastern tonight, 10 o'clock Mountain Time. Keeping you ahead of this dangerous storm, we're going to take a look at the weather now and what's going to continue right on through the next 48 hours.
COPD.
All right, check this out. To paraphrase the old song, he fought the wind, and the wind won. And look at this guy. Minnesota State Trooper was trying to get help traffic, get around a jackknife tractor trailer on a Highway 86 bridge over Interstate 90 when a gust of wind did what? Well, it pushed him out of the way and onto the ground. Luckily, he wasn't hurt, but he did have to face the indignity of his own department releasing his dash cam video. So, Carl, Wesley doing some things to 18-wheelers and state troopers. Powerful storm.
Very powerful storm, and it's going to continue to be a major windstorm right through the next couple of days, even as the snow is winding down. Right into the weekend, we're still going to be seeing a lot of wind across the northern plains. There you see the center of low pressure as it's coming through the region right now. I want to show you a much broader view of what's happening here. That is spring, folks, where you see that cold air wrapping down into the northern plains and then the warm air coming up on the east side. That's what you expect to see in this season, this sort of duking it out between the seasons. Very, very powerful, well-developed, wrapped up low here. And along with that, we are seeing, again, the very intense wind. I want to show you a live picture right now of Duluth, Minnesota. Winds have gusted as high as, get this, 70 miles per hour. 70 miles per hour. That was on the top of a bridge there in Duluth, but we've had winds gusting well over 50 miles per hour for a long, long time now. And, I have a theory. Ray, you can help me out with this, perhaps. I have a theory.
Okay.
And my theory is if you're in the northern plains tonight, unless you're a snowmobiler or a plow truck driver, this storm is a source of great unhappiness for you.
Or a concert goer, from what I hear, right? I couldn't believe that they
Is that
had
incredible?
that concert.
I
Probably one of the worst hit towns also.
Yeah, exactly. That's where the winds have been gusting 50 miles per hour. If you didn't hear this earlier today, we were talking about, just to Dave Malkoff a few minutes ago, we were talking about the fact that people actually went to a country music concert in Duluth.
Right.
Even though the winds are gusting 50 miles per hour and the visibility is a quarter mile.
Maybe someone went on snowmobile. I'm sure they did.
It must have been a really, really good concert.
It has to be. It's good. He is good.
All right, so let's take a look at the current situation right now. Winds gusting, look at that. Look at that. 58 miles per hour in Duluth right now. That is a level of wind that can actually cause damage. I mean, that can bring down branches and power lines and even lift up parts of roofs, that kind of thing. That is really strong wind. Winds gusting to 37 now in Pierre, and as I mentioned, it's going to be going like this for a while. We've got mostly lighter snow. Now in South Dakota and North Dakota, it's a little bit heavier. We're getting into some moderate and heavy snow. Northern parts of Minnesota, we're actually seeing a little bit of a mix of precipitation, including some freezing rain in parts of Wisconsin right now. Look at all the lightning there as well. That is testament to the power of this storm and also the warm and humid air that's coming in on the front side. So what we've seen so far, 18 inches in Dupree and 17.5 in Watertown. Very healthy storm for this time of the year. We certainly can get blizzards in April. It's not terribly uncommon, but some of these values are way up there. There's a look at the current blizzard warnings. Been trimmed back a little bit now, including South Dakota and North Dakota and western parts of Minnesota. And then here's a look at the snow that is yet to come. We're talking about 5 to 8 inches, northern parts of Minnesota, and then a larger area of 3 to 5 there across a lot of central Minnesota. So as I mentioned, snow's gradually going to be winding down through tonight, early tomorrow, but the wind is going to continue for quite some time. Ray, over to you.
All right, Carl, thanks. Well, you know about yellow snow, but look what some residents of St. Cloud, Minnesota discovered when they got their first good look at the ground today. It's snow-tinged tan, yellow, and brown. Turns out that's from the massive amount of dust from where? Texas, which got lofted up and mixed over and up into the upper Midwest. Well, yeah, would you believe it, carried what, hundreds of miles, maybe thousands of miles, as the snow continues to come down. Well, let's just do a comparison now to winter snow and spring snow. It's a different beast, right? So in the winter, you got much colder temperatures and you get smaller snowflakes. In the springtime, you get bigger snowflakes. So those small, dry flakes easy to accumulate. The larger flakes have a tougher time accumulating. They stick together and the ground's colder, right? That makes sense. So the ground's colder in the wintertime, so it makes that snow easier to accumulate, and you get warmer ground, which makes it more difficult to accumulate in the springtime when you get these spring snow events. So look at this event with Wesley here. We had temperatures in some spots in the 60s and 70s, right? And then it snowed the next day. It was in the 30s. That ground was very warm, certainly wasn't frozen. So it took a while for that snow to accumulate. But as it did, we certainly saw it pile up. Now, also the sunshine, right? So you got a lower sun angle, so those sun's rays aren't coming in as direct in the wintertime as they are in the springtime. So that higher sun angle, right? The insulation coming in has a better effect on melting the snow, and that's why that higher sun angle sublimates the snow cover and certainly melts it a lot quicker. So that's the difference between winter and spring snow. All right, we're going to invite you to stick around talking more about this spring snow. Winter storm Wesley is dumping very heavy snow in the heart of the country. When we come back, we will get an in-depth city-by-city forecast of who's going to have the worst snow, ice, and some of the worst travel conditions.
At Domino's, we love...
You get it. Geico Motorcycle. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
All right, you know how bad it is when a dump truck loaded with gravel can't get out of the snow. That snowplow having a tough time. Didn't get enough traction. Eventually got out. I was at the scene in Mitchell, South Dakota this morning. Driving conditions very dangerous. So look, snow-covered roadways. Police were doing everything they could to convince people to stay off the road. There's another rig that is stuck on its side there. Certainly a mess, right? From springtime now to a springtime winter storm Wesley. Thank you for staying with us here for our special coverage, extended coverage of Winter Storm Wesley, a monster snowstorm that stretches more than 1,800 miles tonight, bringing heavy snow, dangerous winds, and blizzard conditions to millions of people. I'm meteorologist Ray Stajic, joined in the lab this evening by storm specialist Carl Parker. And we'll be going to Carl in just a minute, but the picture is worth 1,000 words. Look at this. They're doing a little plowing. Thousands of pounds of snow coming in here as this bobcat pushes it along. This is in St. Cloud, Minnesota earlier. The worst isn't over yet. The area remains under a blizzard watch tonight, and people here are in Stearns County being warned to stay off Interstate 94 because of the snow. And the salt and sand on the roads really isn't doing much to help prevent any accidents. All right, so what did we do? Well, we decided to put somebody right in the heart of this thing, right? So we took Dave Malkoff, and we said, Dave, go get on a plane and go head up north into Duluth, Minnesota. So we did that. And our very own Dave Malkoff now in near blizzard conditions. Dave, what's the latest?
Yeah, and it was nothing like this just starting at noon today. You guys were talking about the concert. That's Luke Combs' concert, Grammy on a Knee. And he is just about 18 minutes of walking time between here and there. And we can confirm to you that that concert not only went on, but there were people who walked in this between here at the hotel and over at the concert venue. And a lot of people did drive in there. Even some people took an Uber. What is happening here? Well, we've got 58-mile-an-hour wind gusts, 40-mile-an-hour sustained gusts, and it is freezing out here. So frozen that used to be Lake Superior. Now it is just a wall of ice going about a quarter mile out there. So tough that you could literally stand on it, and that ice was not there beginning at noon today. It is all flash frozen, and it just congealed right there on the shoreline of Lake Superior. Here comes another gust since noon today. Now that is what you're talking about when you have those gusts coming in, and this is something that just descended on Duluth right starting at noon, and it just would not stop, and it is continuing right now and will continue through tomorrow morning when we will be live here once again here in Duluth and tell you exactly what has happened here in Ray. There are thousands of people without power right now, so they are going to go through this cold, blustery night without power, without lights, and possibly without heat. That is not a situation I want to be in.
Well, certainly not. Thanks A lot, Dave, as you report from Duluth, Minnesota. Certainly going to be interesting times there, and just a prolonged event too, as we bring in storm specialist Carl Parker. I mean, usually we talk about a winter storm and maybe a 24-hour event. I mean,
yeah,
like 2 days or more.
This thing
Slow mover.
it's not moving very much at all. So the winds are going to continue for quite some time. And you know, I still can't get over that story about the concert. I'm such a huge music fan.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I would be able to do that, and I can't believe it still went on.
Is it us or is it them? Sometimes I wonder. Maybe it's us.
Well, you know, Midwesterners are very hardy people.
They
We
are.
know that. We know that. So to them, it's just, you know, a little bit tougher today.
Obviously, right? Right.
So let's take a look at what's happening with this storm right now. And the key to this, the reason why you've got such wind out there is because you've got a very intense area of low pressure. That's being indicated by the red shading right there. And then you've also got a strong high to the north. And so that steepens that pressure gradient, but also delivers fresh, cold air down into the system. So that's a big part of what you need for a winter storm like this. You've got to have both of those things, not just the low pressure, but also pretty good high off to the north as well. Look at the winds right now. Just a moment ago, they were gusting to 58 in Duluth. It's 48 right now. They've actually gusted as high as 78 miles per hour at the top of a bridge there in Duluth. So it has been a beastly night there, even for these folks who are used to this. You know, you look at blizzard climatology, and we do certainly get blizzards in April. You've got a pretty long season for blizzards in the northern part of the plains, but still, this is one heck of a storm there. Winds now gusting to 35 in Fargo. That's probably going to be the case all night tonight, right through the day tomorrow, and then finally by late tomorrow it's going to back off just a little bit there in Fargo. Snowfall rates are coming way down into South Dakota. We've already gotten walloped here. We've had 1.5 feet in some areas. There you see the snow continuing in northern Minnesota. This is where we're getting into some moderate and some heavy snow there in northern parts of Minnesota, and then we're seeing some lightning and thunder and a little bit of a mix into parts of Wisconsin. So there are the blizzard warnings. They have been trimmed a little bit now. Eastern South Dakota, southeastern North Dakota, west central parts of Minnesota. That's where you really got to be concerned about visibility. If you've lived up there for a long time, you know what you're doing up there. We don't have to tell you anything. But if you're new to the area, you have to know that in a blizzard, you're talking about life-threatening conditions, especially if, for example, your car shuts down for some reason. Ray, over to you.
All right, Carl, thanks. And when we come back, the threat for dangerous thunderstorms and tornadoes increasing as we get into the weekend, where we can expect widespread severe weather this weekend, and why you can't let your guard down when you go to bed.
What about
Scab for scarring. Juvedermit.
you? Better.
All right, power lines getting a workout in Minnehaha County in South Dakota. Winds gusting up to 33 miles per hour. Keeping power crews pretty busy making repairs in the Sioux Falls area. Winds have knocked out power to thousands of customers in the last 24 hours or so, many of whom are still waiting for service to be restored tonight. Carl, the latest on this powerful winter storm.
Ray, exactly. It's a monster of a storm, and it's not going to go away quickly. We're going to be talking about wind right through the day tomorrow, even into the early part of Saturday. The snow, at least, is going to begin to taper off tomorrow. I want to show you a live picture now from Duluth, and, you know, it's just amazing. You can really see the issue here with the visibility. Look at the snow blowing under the light right there. We've had winds pretty consistently gusting up to 48, 50 miles per hour. In fact, within the last hour, gusting to 58 miles per hour there in Duluth. I was in a storm like this one time, many years ago. I was working for a television station in Harrisburg, 1993. It was the Superstorm. And I'll tell you, I was out in it, and I thought to myself at one point, I could die out here. I mean, it really was scary, and you can. It's a life-threatening situation. Obviously, people who have lived here for quite a while know how to deal with this, but if you are new to the region, you have to know that it's one of those things where if, for example, your car got stuck and you weren't able to get help right away, you really could be in a very, very bad situation. There's another view looking at the lakeshore there, which is frozen over. We saw actually wave action underneath that ice earlier tonight. And pretty amazing. Someone actually standing out there. Look at that. And checking it all out, enjoying the sights. Beautiful night for a stroll there in Duluth. It is really, really something. We've got winds that continue to gust to 47, 48 miles per hour. And again, that's not going to go away quickly. So here's a look at the current picture, you see the snow sort of wrapping around the backside of the storm. This has not been the juiciest storm in the world, but because it has been persistent, that's why we've seen as much as 1.5 feet of snow in some parts of South Dakota. For example, in Watertown, 17.5 inches so far, gusting to 35 right now in Fargo. Snow to come, looking at a pretty sizable area, 3 to 5. Northern parts of Minnesota, 5 to 8 in some pockets there. And I also want to show you how the winds are going to evolve. So we'll go through tonight, some model forecast, showing you those very strong winds wrapping around the backside. Tomorrow morning, still really, really strong, 30 to 35 miles per hour, generally across North and South Dakota. We'll go into the afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, and we're tapering off the snow showers at this time, but you've still got that very strong wind field across the northern plains. So be it.
All right, Carl, thanks. And St. Paul, Minnesota. All right. It doesn't look so bad, right, from a picture. I'm not telling the whole story. Right now, 35. Not bad, but the wind, 32 miles per hour. Less gust of wind. Wind chill, 24 degrees. So, it's not like bitter Arctic air. That just isn't that type of storm. But you know what? Cold enough, right, for April, 11th? Yeah, it's not unheard of, but this storm, unprecedented how slow it's moving, in my opinion. Here's some stats now for seasonal snowfall in the west and up through the Midwest. Marquette, the big winner here, 214.8 inches, above average by 20 inches. And many places like Minneapolis and Green Bay, above average by almost 20 inches. Sioux Falls, about 4.5 inches above normal. So it's been quite a long winter and now spring with snowfall. And some of these places may actually pick up a little bit more. You get up near Green Bay and up further to the north near Marinette and Goodman, we still have rain and snow. It doesn't look all that widespread. In Manitowoc, it looks like some rain showers. But as you go further north, that's where some of that colder air is. So it does look like a mix and or rain north of Green Bay as we go through tonight. And some of that near White Lake and Suring, trying to change on over to some snow or maybe a little sleet mixed in there, but it doesn't look like big accumulations here, as this looks like mainly a liquid event in this part of the world. As you go further north, there may be a little more snow for the commute in. But around Sioux Falls, this is where you can see the circulation center here. It's pretty close to it. And that counterclockwise spin with the cold air on the backside. So Sioux Falls is a different story. Some of the interstates are closed. And this is an area where we've got some moderate snowfall falling through tonight. And as we play it out through the midnight hour, look at the snow still continuing to move slowly off to the north and east. And as it does, there's wind with this thing too. So just stay home, stay put here until it clears. It looks like it might finally start clearing as we go through midday and into Friday afternoon by about 3 o'clock. We should see things, he said, try to settle down. Up further north as you get near Pierre and up near Bismarck, we do have some scattered snow showers impacting travel, and especially with some of that wind. All right, now let's jump to a little bit of this, right, in Omaha. Check that out. Yeah, quite a lightning strike here as the heartland getting blasted with wild weather last night as a complex of thunderstorms moved in on Winter Storm Wesley's warm side, bringing thunder and lightning even with the right temperatures, even with temperatures right around freezing. I mean, check that out. Man, pretty impressive. And Carl, this is one piece of what's to be maybe a multi-day event. Different systems coming in, but it does look like we are going to have a bigger severe weather threat coming.
Right, and a stronger low that's going to be coming into an area that's closer to a greater source of moisture. So we're going to be looking at a tornado threat most likely on Saturday, and we could be talking about significant tornadoes on Saturday in parts of, say, Texas, Louisiana, maybe Mississippi. We'll get into that in a moment. I want to quickly show you what's going on with storms right now. We are not looking at much potential for severe weather. There could be occasional severe storms. There's a lot of wind in the atmosphere in general, and so even modest storms can tap into that and bring some of that down to the ground. So there may be some damaging wind, parts of Illinois and also into Indiana and along the western end of the Ohio Valley. That's tonight. Now let's get into the weekend, because this is when we're really bringing that moisture off the Gulf of Mexico. So we've got a lot of fuel for developing storms come Saturday. That's a really big part of it. That's a big part of what drives instability. Instability is a measure of how much the thunderstorm is going to grow. And generally, the taller the storm, the greater the potential for severe weather. So when you've got high instability, you've got much more potential for a tall cloud. So we got that on Saturday, and then we've also got this really strong low-level shear, and that drives the tornado threat, because our surface winds in some areas, especially in Louisiana and Mississippi, are going to be coming in out of the southeast and out of the east. So winds are going to be coming out of different directions at different levels of the atmosphere, and that increases the rolling in the atmosphere and the likelihood that you can see a tornado. Now, I want to show you what's going to be happening going through the day. So this is looking at 12 o'clock on Saturday. So we get into 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we start to see an increase in those low-level winds, and so the strength of those low-level winds has a lot to do with the tornado potential as well. And that's also around the time of maximum heating. Now, after that, going into the evening, we're going to watch the instability come down, but the low-level jet is going to get a lot stronger. So we're going to continue to see a tornado threat, even though we're not looking at the peak heating of the day, because that low-level jet is going to get so much stronger into the evening. That's a fairly typical thing, so we could be looking at nighttime tornadoes Saturday night into very early Sunday morning. Ray, over to you.
All right, Carl, certainly not a good thing. And still to come, our special coverage of Winter Storm Wesley, where we expect to see the winds continue to crank for hours to come, and what that means for passengers traveling on the roads. And blinding snow, yeah, it's this, and wind. In Mankato, Minnesota, as Winter Storm Wesley cranked over the upper Midwest. These conditions, it's easy to see why more than 900 flights were canceled today, mostly at Minneapolis, Denver, and Chicago. So, Carl, yeah, that's quarter-mile visibility or less. At least I think so. Certainly an impressive storm, and as we said earlier, a pretty slow-moving one, too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other big part of this. Right. It's just not going away very quickly at all. And we're going to hold on to that wind right into the early part of the weekend, even as the snow begins to wind down. I wanted to show you another view of this, and this is kind of what you expect to see at this time of the year. Believe it or not, when you look at blizzard climatology, it's not that unusual to get blizzards in the northern plains in April. That's very much within the season for blizzards there across the northern plains. And you can see how the cold air has wrapped down into the northern and central plains while the warm air is coming up from the south. So that's sort of a classic spring storm where you've got seasons duking it out there, and some severe potential on the south side, not real high, but some potential. And then, of course, the wintry weather far to the north. And then the wind, because this low is just so strong, the winds have been gusting as high as 70 miles per hour earlier today at some elevation in Duluth, but 58 miles per hour right down at the ground, 46 right now in Duluth, 33 in Fargo. And that's basically where we're going to be right through tonight and through most of the day tomorrow across a lot of this region. It's going to get a little bit better further to the west in particular during the day tomorrow, but will continue to howl most likely in Minnesota and also in eastern South Dakota, eastern North Dakota. There you see the snow really thinning out across parts of South Dakota. We've had quite a bit. We've had as much as 17.5 in Watertown, a good healthy 1.5 feet at a number of spots. Into Minneapolis right now, you notice how the snow is just off to the north and west there, so you've been right on the line for a lot of the day today. We're actually getting into some heavier snow and some moderate snow there in northern parts of Minnesota, and then a little bit of freezing rain and also lightning and thunder now being reported in central parts of Wisconsin. So here's the important part. This is the blizzard warnings that are still going through tonight and into very early tomorrow morning across a lot of South Dakota, southeastern North Dakota, and then also western parts of Minnesota. So these are the areas where the weather is really going to be life-threatening. And this is a function of not just snow, but also wind. You put those two together when the wind is strong enough and you get those lower visibilities, and that's when you can get disoriented. You can get into a lot of trouble, whether you're driving or for some reason you had to get out of your car and walk somewhere. This is why we want folks to be really, really careful here. And we know that, most people across the Midwest are used to this. This is just an April day.
Just another blizzard in April, right?
But, for those that are new to the area, and there have been a lot of people that have moved to North Dakota in recent years, it is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is, I think, a big deal either way.
Yeah.
It's certainly impactful. Thanks, Carl. Now, the snow is beginning to taper off in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, and St. Paul. Let's show you what conditions were like earlier with the Weather Channel's Kelly O'Hara.
The winds are still blowing and whipping up trouble here in downtown Minneapolis. It is rush hour right now. People are headed home, people are headed out of work, and you can see We're getting wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour, 24 hours into winter storm / spring storm Wesley. And let me tell you, it is miserable out right now. The big issue right now on the roads is all this slushy, yucky mess that is everywhere. And the temperatures right now hovering around the freezing mark. If it gets any colder than the 33 degrees it is right now, it could be pretty dangerous on the roads in the metro area. You can see people in their cars, traffic starting to fill up here on the roadways, people trying to head home. But again, if those temperatures drop, it could be dangerous. DOT is asking people to stay off the roads. If you don't have to be on the roads, don't get out there. That's because of the poor visibility in these high winds. Tractor trailers flipping over, power lines down in areas west, north, and south of us. That's because of this, just the intensity of the storm that is blowing through. But right now here in downtown Minneapolis, we get high winds. We have some sleet, some rain mixed in as well. And this storm isn't over anytime soon. For the Weather Channel, I'm Kelly O'Hara.
All right, Kelly, and here's the way the storm looked in O'Neill, Nebraska. Those winds blowing around not only the flag, but signs near whiteout conditions. Yeah, there's whiteout conditions. Snow plows out in force, trying to keep the streets passable. The area will remain under a blizzard warning through the early morning hours. Yeah, that's impressive for Nebraska for April. Certainly looks like a midwinter day, right? And the impacts will continue as we head on through tonight and tomorrow. Yes, many impacts as we've got low pressure, right? Gusty winds, even to 58 miles per hour last hour up in Minnesota. 40 to 50, yeah, sustained 20 to 30. So even when you're driving around and you're not even getting those wind gusts, hang on to that steering wheel, right? You kind of pushed around a little bit. Into tomorrow, we'll continue to see those gusty winds. And the wind alerts, a lot of these wind advisories now are starting to drop off here, but these winds will still be gusting at times to 30 miles per hour. We've got some also put out now in some of the hills in the southern Appalachians. Here's a low, you can kind of see it spinning here. Snow on the backside and winds, this thing cranks up. 1,000 miles of interstates closed. And that wind will continue into tonight with blizzard conditions for many. Heavy wet snow along Interstate 90. Gusty thunderstorms even to the south. I know they were getting pretty close to Chicago a little bit earlier. Cancellations as of now, the nationwide total 962. Highest right here in Minneapolis, 518. Even in St. Louis, though, 119. The nationwide total delays right now, 3,500. Just over 3,500. So it's quite a few delays. Most of them in Chicago right now where stores are getting close.
Introducing Miracle Grow's next.
Now, Winter Storm Wesley continues to pound parts of the northern plains. We're going to look at the major impacts to travel affecting millions tonight. 1,000 miles of interstate closed across 6 states, including I-90 in South Dakota. Thousands of flights canceled or delayed today. Denver's airport being the hardest hit. Other areas also seen feet of snow, including parts of Minnesota. And it looks like it's going to go on. Slow-moving winter storm, Wesley, here in early spring. I'm meteorologist Ray Stajic, and we're going to track a dangerous, severe weather threat developing. Not even from Wesley, it's going to be from another event for the weekend. A 50-50 shot, we're going to have tornadoes. And those chances growing by the hour. We're going to take a look at that threat zone and the timing of it all. That's going to be coming up. But first, the big story. Major deadly spring storm where, in the warm side now, the warm front's pushing north at Wrigley Field. They are evacuating the Cubs game. Thunder and lightning in the area. The wind's gusting at O'Hare almost to 30 miles per hour. Wrigley Field, Cubs Pirates now at least temporarily delayed. They'll probably get back out onto the field. James, I mean, I think you said it was a 7th inning, so they got about 2 more innings to go in that game, top of the 8th. Getting people off the field, that's a good thing, but, you know, they're all hanging outside. I don't know if that's really a good thing. So, you know, they're probably better off being back underneath there and getting under cover. Thunder and lightning in the area, but hopefully they'll be able to get back to playing ball at Wrigley Field. All right, take a look at the radar. We can show you. We're watching that line of storms come through now. As we see, some thunder and lightning there. We do have the lightning tracker on, and it does look like we may be in this for, oh boy, I can't really say, maybe an hour or so, so it might be a delay. I think at this point, they could probably even call the game, but let's hope they don't do that. All right, so that's the warm side. Looks like the warm side's coming north now, but we also have a cold side of this storm.
And just listen to those powerful winds well over tropical storm force in central Minnesota. Winter storm warning in effect here. Blizzard warnings in effect all across the northern plains. Winds so powerful in parts of Minnesota, power lines snapped in half. It's the central part of the state. Nearly 30,000 still without power because of this winter storm. I'm storm specialist Carl Parker, live with you tonight until 10 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Mountain and 11 p.m. Central with the latest on this major spring storm. And we are talking about a very powerful area of low pressure that's not going to give up very easily. That center of low pressure is now in southwestern parts of Minnesota, northwestern Iowa. Very tight pressure gradient, as we say. That's the reason why you get the wind, because there's a big change in pressure over a relatively short distance. And here's a look at what the winds are doing right now. They've come down a little bit in Duluth. Just within the last hour, they were gusting to 58 miles per hour in Duluth, gusting to 41 right now, 35 in Fargo. That's where we're going to be right through the rest of tonight and tomorrow. Even as this snow is sort of winding down and contracting, the bulk of the snow is over right now. The wind is going to go on and go on and go on because the low is so strong and because it's just not going to move very much at all. We've got very light snow really thinning out now in parts of South Dakota. We've got as much as 1.5 feet there into northern Minnesota. Some pockets of moderate and heavy snow in these areas, and we're getting a little bit of freezing rain and lightning and thunder now into parts of Wisconsin. So in Watertown, 17.5 is what we've seen so far, 18 in Dupree. We're not going to get a whole lot more in South Dakota. Again, the blizzard warning still up in west central parts of Minnesota, as well as southeastern North Dakota and also northeastern South Dakota. And then here's a look at the snow to come. We're talking about a pretty sizable area of 3 to 5 in northern parts of Minnesota. So again, it's going to be really tough out there through tonight as well as into early tomorrow. There's a look at the winds going through late tonight, still gusting 40 to 50 miles per hour in Fargo. We want to go out live now to the Weather Channel's Dave Malkoff. He is in Duluth. And Dave, amazing day today, and I think one of the most incredible things that I heard you talk about is the fact that in these 50-mile-per-hour winds with temperatures in the upper 20s, you had actually a concert going on tonight, and people went to the concert. That is the most incredible thing. You know, that is how hardy are Midwesterners.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that really talks to the people who are that hardy, who are able to walk between here and the Luke Combs concert, which could take you up to 20 minutes to walk from here over to there, 10 to 20 minutes depending on how fast you're walking. But it also talks to how big a fan these people are of Luke Combs, who's a Grammy nominee. In the past couple of years, he's had 5 hits on the country charts that charted in the between 1, 2, and 3 slots on the country charts. So he's had a string of hits over here in the past few years. But all these people gathered at the hotel, and throughout all of this 58-mile-an-hour wind gusts, they were able to walk from here all the way over the concert. In fact, if you go to my Twitter right now, which is at Malkoff, Malkoff, you can actually see a video that I retweeted of one of these fans walking between here, one of the hotels that they were staying in, and the concert venue, which is quite a walk from over here with all this wind blowing you around. It's almost hard to stand at sometimes because the wind is blowing, and not only is it blowing, but it's picking up these ice crystals and shooting them at you. It's kind of like somebody blasting you with a sandblaster because it is really tough on your face. And I'm sure that most of those people are kind of dressed up for the concert, but not dressed up for walking through a near blizzard. And that is what they are doing here. But the schools shut down today. There are thousands of people without power. The bus service was canceled, and also some of the beaches were closed. But one thing that was definitely not closed was that Luke Combs concert just not too far from here. So it's amazing. Not only talks to how hardy the people are, but how insane they are for this concert. They definitely wanted to get there. They didn't want to skip out on those tickets.
Yeah, you know, Dave, and I bet the payoff was huge. I bet it was a very intimate event. I'm sure not a lot of people made it out to the show tonight, and so I'm sure that made it that much more special. Just a remarkable day. Thank you so much for your reporting today, Dave. It's been quite a day across the Northern Plains. Let's get you updated on some of the latest information we've been getting in on Wesley. The storm blamed for killing one person in Denver. Slick roads leading to a traffic accident. Storm has cut power to 55,000 customers tonight, and Colorado's governor activated the state's National Guard. Ray?
All right, Carl, and we do have some incredible video here. Look at this. Yeah, that's wind. That's an 18-wheeler. Wind winds out of Texas at Amarillo. So strong that it blew that right over. The driver, luckily, okay, but the wind's gusting over tropical storm force, so that'd be 39 miles per hour, just in case you're checking. Those gusty winds will begin to ease in West Texas. They're also going to be picking up in parts of Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois. Hold on to that steering wheel as you go along I-55 through St. Louis and down into Memphis, right? So, you know, if you're hanging on too loosely, yeah, you might get pushed around a little bit. And if you are taking I-90, these are the conditions you're facing. Ice, snow, even gusty winds. This is a part of the highway that's actually opened in Sioux Falls. Most of I-90 west of here is shut down across most of South Dakota. In fact, there's over 1,000 miles of major interstates closed. So certainly impacts to travel here as we head on through the next few days. All right, let's take a look at Detroit now, where we've seen 1,500 flights canceled, and they're not even close to the center of lowest pressure, but it's been windy. We look live at one of the nation's busiest airports. Delays are included here to be in the range of about 3,200 today. Check with the airlines if you do have a flight tomorrow to places like Denver, Minneapolis, even St. Louis because of the wind. You could see another round of cancellations and big delays heading in to Fridays. All right, Friday, everybody's trying to get out of town or back into town or back home from business. And you've got this, right? Slow moving oil pressure, right? If that thing was moving any slower, it'd be going backwards. But it's not. You still got snow to the north, and those red lines aren't my red lines, right? Those are closed interstates. Over 1,000 miles of them. I-90, I-76, Interstate 80. Go north out of Sioux Falls, Interstate 29. So we are seeing some closed interstates with the wind and the snow, right? In near blizzard conditions. Heavy wet snow along I-90. Gusty thunderstorms to the south. We just showed thunderstorms going through Chicago near Wrigley Field, where they've evacuated Wrigley Field for the game. There are delays, 963 right now, 518 in Minneapolis. Those delays will probably continue to get less as we go through the next 24 hours, but still catch up to do from the nationwide total of 3,600. Minneapolis, 293. Even St. Louis has 34 delays being reported. So we've got impacts in the air. Right now you got light snow. The wind's gusting 26 miles per hour in Minneapolis. And 23-degree wind chill, so certainly is a chilly one there. And your delays will continue even as we get into more Indianapolis, down toward Springfield, or no, that's Louisville, excuse me, and even on into Columbus. Some of those abbreviations are a little tough. All right, let's take you live now into Duluth in Minnesota. Yeah, the snow's still coming down. Visibility looks okay. The winds are gusting, and we got damaging winds here. It's stay nasty right on through the nighttime hours tonight. So some cities that we are going to see have weather impacts also into Duluth here. A little bit worse visibility, 28 degrees. Well, look at that wind gusting, 47 miles an hour. So the wind chill certainly getting down there, most likely into the teens. And there's a little snow flying around. You know, that snow certainly making it feel a little bit more like winter. Yeah, so snow still blowing around, visibility still down, and more cities and more snow yet to come to be impacted by Wesley. So the impacts from this storm will continue to be in and across parts of the upper Midwest as we go through the daytime hours today and tonight and tomorrow. Starting to see some of these impacts get not only to some of the regional airports, but also some other cities as we head on through the next 24 hours. So not only Duluth, but Minneapolis and back into Detroit, Chicago. So as we watch the low pull away, we will continue to see thunderstorms south, and we'll see rain and snow on up further toward the north as this storm continues to slowly push away. We'll watch and put the maps into motion, as you can see, through tonight, very slowly through the eastern Dakotas, northern Minnesota. The snow starting to taper off. But it doesn't really get out of the eastern Dakotas to early tomorrow morning, and maybe not out of northern Minnesota, north of Minneapolis until around midday. But eventually it will, and we'll certainly see improving weather, but the wind and cold on the backside. Keeping the snow in the forecast on again, off again, but little accumulation temperatures in the 30s in Minneapolis, but there may be a little bit more snow to the north. Right now, another inch or so, maybe another 3 or 4 from Oak Grove up toward St. Cloud. Now, this powerful storm also does have a severe side. How severe? Well, how about lightning strike severe like that in Omaha? Yeah, thunder too. The heartland is getting blasted with wild weather last night as a complex of storms moved in on Winter Storm Wesley's warm side. As the storm moves out, we are bracing for a new round of severe weather in the south. Carl Parker's here to explain.
And Ray, speaking of lightning, we've seen that tonight in Chicago. Here's a live look at Wrigley Field. A lot of people on the street as the ballpark was evacuated due to lightning coming in. So it is a rain delay for now. We've not gotten word on cancellation of the game as of yet. The good news is there's not a terrific amount of lightning, nor is there a whole lot of instability, though we just did see a flash right there in the background. And so, you know, any amount of lightning is a scary thing when you're at an outdoor event like that. But when we look at the radar picture right now, it looks like it's not going to be, you know, a terrific lightning storm. We've got some scattered strikes that are now coming into Chicago, and hopefully that's going to be the last of it as this little area comes through right in there. Maybe we'll see a bit of a cessation after that point. Certainly looks like that could be the case. But beyond that, we're looking at a severe threat going into this weekend that's really going to be significant. For tonight, not a huge deal. We'll get some storms, so maybe some gusty winds, certainly some thunder and lightning, parts of Illinois, Indiana, and the western end of the Ohio Valley. But this weekend is the big event. That's when we expect a well-developed low to come across Texas, pulling up a lot of moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico. So you've got low-level warm and humid air, and that gives you, in conjunction with temperatures getting colder as you go up through the atmosphere, that gives you instability. You can think of that as fuel for thunderstorms. So that's a big part of what drives a severe weather threat. When you've got that instability, that allows the clouds to grow very tall to begin with. But then another really big part of it is the low-level wind fields. And here you see the very strong low-level jet. Notice the directions coming out of the south there. Now let's take a look at the surface winds. Same time, Saturday evening. Look at the direction here. Those are winds that are coming out of the east. They're coming out of the southeast in the parts of Louisiana and southern Mississippi. So you've got winds coming out of the east and southeast, and at the same time, you've got winds coming out of the south at about 5,000 feet up. And when you have that kind of turning of the winds in the atmosphere, that creates spin in the atmosphere between those layers. And in that environment, storms can begin to spin themselves, and that's the beginning of the process that leads to tornadoes. And that is more likely when you've got more turning of the winds. So that's part of what we're concerned about. We're partly concerned about the tornado threat in the afternoon hours, but also I want you to notice there's a low-level wind field at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Watch what happens to that low-level wind field going into late Saturday. Oftentimes what you see is a stratification in the atmosphere because there's not as much mixing going on, and so the winds begin to separate, and that allows those low-level winds, because they're not mixing with the surface, to get stronger in the evening hours. And as that low-level jet gets stronger, that makes that spin even greater. So even though there's not as much instability, you can actually continue to have a very serious tornado threat well into the evening. That is going to be the worry Saturday night and into the overnight hours. So we think the greatest threat on Saturday is going to be centered in northern Louisiana as well as into Texas. But again, that could extend farther east into Mississippi late on Saturday, early on Sunday. 6 out of 10 on the Torcon in northeastern parts of Texas, northwestern Louisiana. And then more broadly, we've got a 4 out of 10 across that region. So, Ray, it looks like it's going to be a pretty big day, most likely on Saturday. Over to you.
All right, we are going to be live tonight until 12 a.m. Eastern, for that matter, over the weekend. And we're going to keep you ahead of the dangers coming. Let's take a look at the weather right now as we see the radar showing where storms are and where they're going.
Bringing my
Breaking now, we are in Chicago and Wrigley Field. Storms moving in and forced Wrigley Field to be evacuated. Top of the 8th against the Pirates, 2-0. So for now, it's a delay. They could certainly end that game if they chose to. With the Cubs actually in the lead 2-0 over the Pirates. So people getting out of the stadium, some dangerous weather. And dangerous weather moving through Chicago. And you never know how long it's going to last. Maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. So we'll see what they do. Well, let's jump to the winter side of Winter Storm Wesley, bringing every kind of wintry precip known: snow, sleet, even some freezing rain. And here in Sioux Falls in South Dakota, the ice coats this car window. Look at that. And the stage for a very satisfying punch through the window of ice. Come on, cue the music. There we go. Punches right through it there, right? So, car, you can have a little fun too when you get these bigger weather events, these impactful events. Certainly, Wesley has been that.
Is it fun though, really, Ray, do you think?
It looked like fun. I mean, would you do it if it wasn't fun?
I'm just thinking more broadly. I would imagine that people are really, really tired of winter.
Yeah, especially in that part of the world.
Yeah.
It's been a long and, at a time, a very cold one, too.
Yeah,
a real cold snap.
I remember living in central Pennsylvania, and by the time you got to April and you got a little taste of warmth, you're done with it.
Well, you're talking to the wrong guy.
Am I? Are you a winter guy?
Yeah, if I was in my ideal environment, it's 4 feet of snow, 20 degrees above zero at night, and 20 below that night, year-round. I could live in that.
You're kidding. Wow.
True story.
How about that? Well, I know there are people like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people love to snowmobile, and they love all the winter sports, and so I get it. I just don't have to be one of those people.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's take a look at what's going on with our storm right now. And you've got a really strong area of low pressure. That's a big part of what's driving all this weather right now. But there's also a strong high off to the north. That's another really critical part of having a winter storm like this, delivering fresh, cold air into the system. But it's the strength of the low that's driving the wind and the fact that it's just not moving very much at all. So we're going to be dealing with this wind right through tomorrow, even into the early part of Saturday. Winds now gusting to 41 in Duluth, gusting to 32 in Fargo. That's not going to change very much at all going into the day tomorrow. I'll show you that in a moment. Additional snow, 3 to 5 from Fargo across northern Minnesota, some pockets of 5 to 8. Here is a look at our forecast, showing you how the snow is going to evolve along with the wind. So we'll go into overnight tonight, gusting 40 to 50 miles per hour in Fargo, 20 to 25 in Minneapolis. We'll take it into Friday morning as the sun's coming up. We've still got exceptionally strong wind there in Fargo, in Duluth. Sioux Falls gusting 25 to 30, Rapid City 30 to 35. So a widespread wind field that really doesn't move that much. So Friday afternoon, still got the same thing, very strong winds across the region. Even into Friday night, it's still windy. It's not quite as bad, but you're talking about a very long duration wind event here in the Northern Plains. Ray, over to you.
And in Minnesota, the Department of Transportation crews are sharing this video, showing people, they're showing this video showing people why they're asking you to actually stay off the road, stay home, right? Blowing snow, that visibility is near zero. Dangerous to drive. And now with the sun down, things are likely to get worse on the roadways because it's not going to get any warmer, right? So eventually it will, but not tonight. So it'll take a little bit of time. Snow and wind are a dangerous combination, especially if you're behind the wheel. Let's go back to Carl now and explain why this is such a hazard.
Snow reflects about 85% of sunlight. That's about 5.5 times more than grass. During intense snowstorms, light bounces off the ground, clouds and falling snow. This creates a bright, milky whiteness that eliminates visual cues, like the horizon lines and shadows, which assist in depth perception and orientation. As a result, close-up vehicles and structures can appear far away. This compromised vision is especially dangerous while driving. Visibility in a whiteout can drop to just 10 feet, less than a car length. It takes an average driver about 0.7 of a second to react and brake. With only 10 feet of visibility, a car traveling at anything more than 6 miles an hour is at risk. So during the next snowstorm, keep your hands on the wheel, eyes on the road, and slow down.
Now, this was the scene in Hutchinson, Minnesota. Rain mixed with snow. It's been falling all day. We're going to keep an eye on how this affects the South Fork Crow River, which is just below flood stage. Yeah, that's still going on, too. And we still have got snow coming down, so it's going to have to melt and get into some of these rivers. And this is a different type of snow, right? We've got spring snow and we have winter snow. So it's winter snow versus spring snow. And they're different, right? Because in the wintertime, you get smaller flakes, colder air, they easily accumulate. Here we get them to stick together. You've got these larger flakes, those big gloppy flakes that you get. Well, that's what you get in the springtime. And it does accumulate faster in the wintertime, so the cold ground makes that happen. The warmer ground makes accumulations more difficult in the springtime. And then you throw in the sunshine, right? The lower sun angle means that those beams aren't coming in at a direct angle, so it's easy for the snow to stick around. But here, when the sun's coming in at a higher angle that's able to actually melt that snow a little bit quicker. Stay tuned.
Gary.
All right, that's the sound of thunder snow, and what you see on the ground is snow. Look at that, even a flash of lightning. This is an event moving out over Austin, Minnesota this morning, about 10 miles north of the Iowa border. Now, there is some good news. The snow dampens the sound. The bad news is that, yeah, more of that is possible as we go through the overnight. And some of that's with snow, and actually some of that is with thunderstorms. There's some rolling through Chicago right now, delaying the Cubs game. Thank you for staying with us for our special coverage. Extend your coverage of Winter Storm Wesley, a monster snowstorm that stretches more than 1,800 miles tonight, bringing snow, blizzard conditions, and dangerous winds to millions. I'm meteorologist Ray Stajic, joined in the lab this evening by storm specialist Carl Parker. A picture worth 1,000 words. This front-end loader here, look at that pile of snow pushing it out of the way. Yeah, out of this parking lot in St. Cloud, Minnesota earlier today. And the worst isn't over yet. This area remains under a blizzard warning tonight, and people are here in Stearns County being warned to stay off the roads. Interstate 94, because salt and sand on the surface isn't doing much to prevent accidents. And so what did we do? We've got a winter storm. We took Dave Malkoff, right? We said, Dave, get on a plane and go up there to Duluth and give us the latest. Here he is.
Yeah, let me give you an idea of where we are. This is Duluth, Minnesota, which is right on the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is over there, over the bridge. And then this is Minnesota. That should be Lake Superior right behind me. But starting at noon today, that lake turned into a frozen solid ground, and it just flash froze right in front of us. Let me actually show you what it looked like at noon today. The water splashing and churning, but it was still liquid water, and what happened was that water was able to accumulate right there on the shoreline, and as it hit concrete structures or the boardwalk up here, it was flash freezing and just becoming this ice wall that you see behind us right now. The winds are gusting up to 58 miles an hour. There is a sustained wind of 40 miles an hour, but the city did take this precaution, and they made sure that they closed the schools, they closed all the services here, and closed some of the bus lines. Some of the beaches were closed as well. But one thing that was not closed was the Luke Combs concert, Grammy nominee, who is just about 18 minutes from here. That concert went on as planned. People came from their hotels. Some of them drove. Some of them took a Uber, very brave Uber drivers. And some of them, actually, we can confirm this, walked in this near blizzard condition between here and the concert. That guy must be good. We are here in Duluth, Minnesota, in the middle of Winter Storm Wesley, but in the springtime. I'm Dave Malkoff, the Weather Channel.
All right, Dave, and I will say he is good, right? So that's the first part of it. And I want to know the attendance of that concert.
Yeah, because
I'm curious.
It might have been a really amazing thing. If for example, 40% of the people showed up, it was probably a wonderful, intimate affair. And, everybody could move up closer to the stage.
Right.
But yeah, it makes me, I'm intrigued now because I'm a huge music fan.
Yeah.
And to know that people walk through 60 mile per hour wind to get to this concert.
Anybody you'd walk 60 miles an hour or 60 mile an hour winds to go see in concert in those conditions?
No? Well, yeah, definitely.
See?
Rush, but there don't play anymore.
Well, that's true too. I think there was more than 50% of the crowd went. I really do.
Do you? I would love to know.
I would too.
Yeah, but I am very intrigued. So let's take a look at what's going on with our really impressive storm here that's not moving. very much at all. This is the water vapor imagery, and this can be really beautiful. You can see the big swirl in the atmosphere. This is what we call the dry slot right there, wrapping up into the upper low, which is right in there. It's actually got multiple centers, and you see the moisture coming up as well. One of the things about the storm is that it's not only strong, it's barely moving, and so that's going to make everything last for such a long period of time. The wind's going to go right into the weekend. 35-mile-per-hour wind gusts right now in Fargo. Duluth gusting to 47. It's been like that for hours and hours and hours, gusting as high as 58 within the last couple of hours. Snow is thinning out in South Dakota. We've had 1.5 feet in Watertown. International Falls, still snowing there. Got some moderate snow being reported in some areas here in the northern part of the state, and then we get into a little bit of freezing rain and some thunder and lightning as well. Blizzard warnings are still in effect for parts of Minnesota and South Dakota and North Dakota. So this is where the weather's actually going to be life-threatening, to be honest with you. And most people know how to deal with it in this part of the world, but it's one of those things where you've got to be really careful. If you were to get, for example, stuck, if you drove into a snowbank and you couldn't get out and then you had to walk, right, to wait for somebody to get to you for a long time, you really could be in a lot of trouble. So just something to keep in mind. This is the forecast, and here you see the winds right in there. So let's go through tomorrow. Early tomorrow morning, winds are still going strong across North to South Dakota. We'll take it into tomorrow afternoon. Winds are still going strong, still 35, 40 miles per hour, and continue into Saturday morning as well. Ray, over to you.
All right, when we come back, the threat for dangerous storms and tornadoes is going to be increasing as we get into the weekend, where we can expect widespread severe weather this weekend, and why you can't let your guard down even when you go to bed.
Skin loves.
All right, this is dangerous driving. Check this out in Minnesota today. Low visibility, blowing snow, and down power lines, littering Highway 86. See that over on the right pole, over on the left? You can see that pole leaning to the left there, all right? More than 60,000 people in the dark this evening as Wesley downs trees and power lines in the Dakotas, Iowa, and Minnesota. Carl.
So we got this really powerful storm that you can actually see really clearly on a hemispheric scale. This is, the time of year when you've got the season sort of boxing, kind of duking it out. And you can really see that when you look at what are called the 850 temperatures. 850 is a reference to the millibars. That's a low level of the atmosphere. It usually sits at about a mile up, but that varies depending on the temperature. And so when we look at these 850 temperatures, sort of a pure version of what's going on with the temperatures, because you're not seeing as much daily variation, diurnal variation. And so what you can very clearly see in this case is the warm air coming up into the eastern part of the country and the cold air wrapping down into the northern plains, into the central plains. That's spring. That's what happens in spring. You have this sort of a clash of the seasons, and in this case, that clash has led to a very powerful storm that is producing a terrific amount of wind right now, gusting to 47 still in Duluth. We've got a live picture of Duluth right there, and it's just been going like this for hours and hours and hours, and the visibilities have been very low. We've had zero visibility at times, and so that is really going to be the worry going forward. We've had a good bit of snow, too. We've had as much as 1.5 feet in parts of South Dakota. Going forward, most of the snow is going to be centered in northern parts of Minnesota, a pretty large area of about 3 to 5 inches there. Ray, over to you.
Thanks, Carl. And in St. Paul, Minnesota, it's all dark 30 now, or getting there. It's kind of tough to see, but you kind of see a little haze out there, right? And so you can tell that there's some snow falling, visibility's down. And in the Midwest, it's been quite a winter for many places, right? As we continue to cover Wesley, we go back a little bit in time and we think, well, what has this added to some of these seasonal totals in terms of snowfall? Well, Sioux Falls, 46.5 inches, Departures 4.5 inches, but look at Marquette, Michigan. A lot of that's lake effect, 20.4 above average, but Minneapolis, 71.9, you're 18 inches above average. You got off to a pretty slow start, but as you got into later January, February, March, you certainly picked it up in terms of snow. A lot of rain here on the west side of Lake Michigan, Manitowoc, looking at rain in Green Bay, maybe a couple of sprinkles. It's snow further north, but as we go through tonight, we'll continue to watch now precipitation go away, and as it does, things should start drying out. Green Bay, some showers up near White Lake and Surrey. stirring, seeing some mixed precipitation and or rain and snow moving away. So as we go through the early morning, as we commute in tomorrow morning, you should be in better shape. Pavement probably trying to dry out, but further north as you go 141 or 41, may run into some slick spots, should be decent as you get down near Green Bay. And Sioux Falls, you still got this snow, it's got to pull on through as the low pulls away. So on Interstate 90 is going to be interesting. Same thing with Interstate 29 as we go on through the nighttime hours tonight. As you can see here, the snow still heading on in. All right, there's a severe side too to this storm. Check this out. It's a lightning strike right there, right? The Heartland was getting blasted. With that, thunder too. This was last night. This complex of storms moved in on Wesley's warm side, bringing thunder and lightning. That's pretty impressive. And with temperatures right around freezing, so some elevated convection there. And it looks like we've got more severe weather. Not necessarily criteria being met, so maybe severe is a little bit too strong a word for tonight, but there's more coming.
Yeah, certainly stormy weather tonight. We're getting thunderstorms, and there may be some occasional severe storms tonight. There's a lot of wind in the atmosphere. When that's the case, you can get that wind transferred down to the ground with stronger storms. So that's going to be one thing we're looking at. No watches right now. We don't expect that there are going to be watches coming out, but we have had some strong storms in Chicago with a pretty good bit of lightning. There's a closer look. You notice how it is starting to thin out right now in downtown Chicago, and we've been watching Wrigley Field for a while now. They actually evacuated the field, and there's been a rain delay there because of that lightning and thunder moving in. Looks like we're getting a little bit of a break right now, so we may be able to resume there. So the pseudo severe threat tonight, not a real big threat, but some threat for damaging wind in parts of Illinois, Indiana, and also the western end of the Ohio Valley. Now we're going to be looking at a much more serious threat going into the weekend, because you've got a pretty strong low coming across Texas, moving into Louisiana, into Mississippi. A lot of moisture associated with that. That moisture leads to instability, and that's fuel for thunderstorms. So we've got plenty of fuel to allow storms to grow very tall. Another big part of what we're watching is the low-level jet, which is going to be coming in very rapidly from the south. Now, winds at the surface are going to be moving in from the east and southeast, so they're going to be coming out of different directions at different levels of the atmosphere, and that's the environment that allows tornadic storms to develop. And I want to show you something else. So here's that low-level jet. It's just starting to get going, middle of the day on Saturday. Then it steps up, most likely going into Saturday afternoon. So we've certainly got a tornado threat as that's happening, but then it gets even stronger going into Saturday night and early Sunday morning. Instability's coming down, but the low-level jet's getting stronger, the shear is increasing, which means that the tornado threat could continue right through the night Saturday and into early Sunday. Ray, over to you.
There are many key ingredients that can create a severe weather outbreak. Mike Bettis explains how one element can mean the difference between benign rain, storm, or destruction.
Instability, one of the more complex ingredients that goes into severe weather. And to understand it, we have to first understand the temperature profile of the atmosphere. And generally speaking, temperatures decrease with height, but it's the environmental lapse rate we're most interested in. And what that means is how quickly do temperatures cool as you go up? Well, generally speaking, the more gradual that is, the more stable the atmosphere. In a stable atmosphere, we take a warm, moist parcel of air near the surface and lift it. In this instance, this parcel of air cools at the same rate or faster than the air around it, meaning no clouds form or just fair weather clouds. But now let's talk about an unstable atmosphere. Our environmental lapse rate is dramatic, meaning temperatures cool quickly with height. So let's take that same parcel of air and lift it through the atmosphere. It now cools at a much slower rate than the atmosphere around it. It continues to lift, build clouds, and even thunderstorms. But there is one catch, and it's known as the cap, a warm layer in the atmosphere that keeps our parcel of air from lifting. If we have enough surface heating and we break through that cap, then explosive thunderstorms form. And it's these thunderstorms that are most likely to form tornadoes.
Well, still to come tonight on our special coverage of Winter Storm Wesley, where we are going to expect the winds to continue to crank in the coming hours, and what that means for passengers traveling in and out of some of the Midwest's busiest hubs. Your travel forecast next.
Every day, millions of
Blinding snow, wind, in Mankato, Minnesota. As Winter Storm Wesley cranked over the upper Midwest, these conditions make it easy to see why more than 900 flights were canceled today. Most of the out of Minneapolis, Denver, and Chicago. Well, looks like a blizzard, sounds like a blizzard. I don't know, Carl Parker.
Have you ever been in
Blizzard?
anything like that?
Yeah.
Have you? It's pretty amazing, isn't it? I was in the Superstorm in Harrisburg in 1993. It was exactly like that.
Yep, I was in blizzard of 96 going up and then back down Hunter Mountain in the Catskills.
Yeah.
Out of work, actually, and I had to go. Yeah, it's not fun.
It's not.
No.
And, you know, when I was out in it, we were out, you know, driving around in Harrisburg.
Right.
I realized, I was thinking to myself, you know, if we couldn't get back for some reason, if we, this was before cell phones.
Exactly.
I was thinking to myself, we could
Then
really
what do
be
you
in a
do?
lot of trouble out
You
here.
could be.
Yeah.
You could be.
You know, it was really cold and really windy. 50, same thing, 50 mile per hour wind.
And luckily, technology's come a long way, so it helps with situations like that. But
It does.
It still be problems.
Still scary, no
Yeah, it
question. And you know what's happening with this low is it's just not moving very much at all. So it's going to be in our hair right through the next couple of days. Even as the snow winds down on Saturday, we're still going to be looking at the wind. I'll show you that here in just a moment as we look at the model forecast. I want to show you the current winds, which have been, you know, really, really consistent. Now back up to 54 miles per hour in Duluth, gusting as high as 58, actually as high as 70 miles per hour on top of one of the bridges in the Duluth area. 32, the most recent gust in Fargo, 33 in Pierre. That's the way it's going to be right through the day tomorrow. And then again, as I mentioned, even into Saturday. So we've got this ongoing blizzard warning here. Even as the snow is starting to thin out, you don't have to have heavy snow to have a blizzard. In fact, it doesn't even have to be snowing. If you've got light powdery snow on the ground, the wind can kick that up, and that reduces the visibility. It's the wind combined with the visibility, that's what gives you your blizzard. We did officially meet blizzard criteria in Duluth earlier tonight. So there's a look at the the forecast going forward, and you've got the winds on here, so I want you to see how the snow really thins out in North and South Dakota into tomorrow morning. It's so showers tomorrow morning, but you've still got these really vicious winds continuing right through the morning, right through the day tomorrow. Here we go into the afternoon, still very strong, and then finally into Saturday. The snow is all but over at that point. Some showers into Saturday morning, but you've still got a very strong wind field just because that low is so powerful sitting across the northern plains. So that is going to be the story of this storm, an exceptionally large and long-lasting windstorm. Ray, over to you.
Snow is beginning to taper off in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul. Let's show you what conditions were like earlier with the Weather Channel's Kelly O'Hara.
The winds are still blowing and whipping up trouble here in downtown Minneapolis. It is rush hour right now. People headed home, people headed out of work, and you can see we're getting wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour. 24 hours into winter storm / spring storm Wesley. And let me tell you, it is miserable out right now. The big issue right now on the roads is all this slushy, yucky mess that is everywhere. And the temperatures right now hovering around the freezing mark. If it gets any colder than the 33 degrees it is right now, it could be pretty dangerous on the roads in the metro area. You can see people in their cars, traffic starting to fill up here on the roadways, people trying to head home. But again, if those temperatures drop, it could be dangerous. DOT is asking people to stay off the roads. If you don't have to be on the roads, don't get out there. That's because of the poor visibility in these high winds. Tractor trailers flipping over, power lines down in areas west, north, and south of us. That's because of this, just the intensity of the storm that is blowing through. But right now here in downtown Minneapolis, we got high winds. We have some sleet, some rain mixed in as well. And this storm isn't over anytime soon. For the Weather Channel, I'm Kelly O'Hara.
Well, thanks, Kelly. And weather balloons. Yeah, going out, but not an easy task of it in central Nebraska as these scientists here And the North Platte Weather Service Office releasing the balloon before dawn to check on the wind speeds, temperatures, and other factors crucial to forecasting the power, direction, and duration of Wesley. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, but guess what? They got it out and they got it up there and delivering back to us plenty of useful data to help predict not only what's happening with this storm, but the storms to come. And then that goes into how it's going to affect you and maybe how it's going to affect your travel, right? So we've got Friday coming up, and through tonight around Sioux Falls, we do have snow still flying, the wind still blowing. We should by tomorrow morning see this snow lessen. This is much lighter snow and flurries, and through midday it should be shutting off completely as our low exits. And by the afternoon, we're in better shape. Now, near Pier, further north, some scattered flurries and snow showers left over with gusty winds. We'll go through tonight. We'll continue here also to see the snow pull away. Probably not much left in the way of accumulation, but there may be some light accumulations, especially the further to the east you go as the low goes in that direction, north-northeast. So really looking pretty good as we get into tomorrow afternoon, especially. And it does look like even around Rapid City, we will see some more snow showers and some more snow flurries. Well, coming up in our next hour, winter refusing to give up in the high plains. We're going to break down where Winter Storm Wesley has already overachieved and where the storm is going to cause big issues in the hours to come, and when the upper Midwest may finally get a break from the weather.
And this is Duluth, Minnesota, in the middle of Winter Storm Wesley. But it's not the winter. This is springtime. How did spring turn into this, a near blizzard? We'll talk about it coming up.
And also ahead, we're looking at the major impacts to travel. Millions affected tonight. There's nearly thousands of miles of interstates closed across 6 states right now, including I-90 in South Dakota. Thousands of flights canceled or delayed today. Denver's airport being hit hardest. And others are seeing feet of snow, including parts of Minnesota. Welcome back to our continuing coverage here. I'm meteorologist Ray Stajic, and there's a severe side to this storm that's also developing. There's a severe threat for the weekend. There's a 50-50 threat for tornadoes coming in this weekend. That chance is growing by the hour. We're going to look at that and the threat zone coming up in just a bit. But first, the big story, and that's this major deadly spring storm. And this is new video that's just come in. And we were talking about the Cubs game being at least delayed, the stadium being evacuated. Good idea, right? Look at this. Lightning moving on through Chicago tonight. It's a part of our powerful storm, the warm sector, bringing blizzard conditions to the north. And this, look at that. Little fingers going out there right across the sky. And yeah, good thing they evacuated that game, and certainly hope that they can finish. It was on top of the 8th, last check, 2-0. Cubs winning, so hopefully they'll be able to get back in.
And just listen to those powerful winds, well over tropical storm force here in central Minnesota. An incredible day. Winds so powerful in parts of Minnesota. Power lines snapped in half. This is the central part of the state. Nearly 30,000 are without power tonight because of this winter storm. I'm storm specialist Carl Parker, live with you tonight until 11 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Mountain Time, with the latest on this major spring storm. And this thing is such a slow mover. It has barely moved in the last 6 hours, and it's going to move very, very slowly right into the weekend. So the winds are going to be with us right through the day on Saturday. Here's the low pressure center right there, and as nearly as I can tell, it's moved maybe 40 miles in the last 6 hours. It's just crawling along here, and that's a big part of what has made the snow totals higher. It's not an incredibly wet storm, but it's been a long-lasting system, and that's why the wind is going to be with us for quite some time to come. Let's take a look at what the winds are doing now. Excuse me, gusting to 40 miles per hour in Aberdeen right now, 33 in Pierre. The snow is really thinning out. It's light snow for the most part, but we still could be looking at lower visibilities just because there's so much wind continuing. Winds gusting now to 52 miles per hour in Duluth. It's been strikingly consistent, gusting between 45 and 55 miles per hour for hours and hours and hours. So we did actually reach blizzard conditions there. And then here into Milwaukee, winds coming out of the east gusting to 33 miles per hour. We're seeing rain and some storms in that area. So the blizzard warnings are ongoing in west central parts of Minnesota. as well as into South Dakota and North Dakota. If you are from this area, if you've been there a long time, you know how to deal with this. If you're new to the area, this is really life-threatening weather. You've got to be very, very careful. There's a look at the snow to come, and we're talking about a pretty sizable area of 3 to 5 inches there in northern parts of Minnesota. And here is our forecast. So we'll take this into the overnight, and you still see the strong winds there. The snow continuing across parts of Minnesota. It's going to be coming into the Twin Cities. Tomorrow morning, winds are going to be light as the low is going to be right over top of you, but just off the western Fargo, still gusting 30 to 35 miles per hour tomorrow through most of the day tomorrow, just as we saw today. There's 3 p.m. in the afternoon, still 30, 35 miles per hour. From time to time, Sioux Falls and Fargo, even into tomorrow night, and as I mentioned, into Saturday morning as well. We want to talk to the Weather Channel's Dave Malkoff live in Duluth. He's got a look at conditions there.
Let me just give you an idea of where we are. We are right here in Duluth, Minnesota, and right over there is Wisconsin. Right over here is Lake Superior. But I don't see a lake back there. All I see is a sheet of ice going back about 1/4 mile. That, just as recently as a few hours ago, was all liquid water rolling in and splashing. But because this wind, gusting up to 58 miles an hour, was so cold and so fast, and all of this storm activity descended right on top of us with snowfall, that ice just formed right in front of us. It just accumulated over the matter of hours, and it looked like it was sea foam piling up there, but no, it was all of that ice piling up there. But luckily, the schools were canceled, the bus service was canceled, there were some beaches that were shut down, but one thing that did go on as planned was the Luke Combs country concert that was just about a 20-minute walk from here. That concert went on as scheduled. A lot of people were thinking maybe it would get canceled, but a lot of people came as far away from Minnesota, from southern Minnesota, and they drove all the way up here. Up to 3-hour drive. What would normally be a 3-hour drive became a 6-hour drive for some of those folks. But they definitely wanted to see that concert, and that concert went on as scheduled throughout this near blizzard here in Duluth, Minnesota. I'm Dave Malkoff, the Weather Channel. Back to you.
And I'm sure it was quite a show, Dave. Thank you so much. And let's get you updated on some of the latest information we've got on Wesley. A storm being blamed for killing one person in Denver. Slick roads leading to a traffic accident. Storm has cut power to 55,000 customers tonight, and Colorado's governor has activated the state's National Guard. Ray?
All right, we got some incredible video from yesterday. Watch that. Wow. Yeah, the wind's so strong here in Amarillo, Texas, we toppled over that big rig, right? Well, the driver luckily okay. The wind's gusted over tropical storm force. These gusty winds are beginning to ease now in Texas, but they're picking up across other parts of the U.S. and plains and Missouri, Kansas, Illinois. And hang on to that steering wheel, I-55 through St. Louis down to Memphis, right? So you're driving around and the car getting bumped around. Now, I-90, the conditions we're facing were ice and snow and even some wind. Here, we see part of the highway that is open, but most of I-90 west of here is shut down across most of South Dakota. In fact, there are over 1,000 miles of major interstates closed. Now we'll take a look into Detroit. All right, we're nearly a few hundred flights are canceled. We're going to look live at one of the busiest airports in the nation. That is Detroit. The delays today are over 3,200 at one point. Check on your airline if you have a flight that have to go out tomorrow. Places like Denver, Minneapolis, even St. Louis could have delays also because of those winds. And you could see other rounds of cancellations and big delays right on through the daytime hours tomorrow. So certainly an impactful event, and those impacts continue as we go through this evening, right? So this is the 1,000 miles. There's some here and there's some here out through northern Nebraska. So those interstates, that's about from Atlanta to just north of New York City. That's how many miles of interstate are closed. So that's a bunch as the snow continues to fly on the backside. And it's coming down hard in some spots, but it's not widespread. It's the wind, too, that's getting you. So near blizzard conditions to the west, heavy wet snow along Interstate 90. Gusty thunderstorms to the south where the Cubs have taken the field. We've been talking about the delay, but now the Cubs are back on the field. So they're trying to finish that in Chicago where they did have thunderstorms. Cancellations now. 965, most of them at Minneapolis, 519. Delays nationwide, almost 3,800. Minneapolis leading the way with 289, but all the way down to St. Louis with some of the wind, even 34 delays being reported. Right now, light rain 34. The winds are kind of light as we speak, of the wind chill 26 in Minneapolis, so certainly improving there. And we should see it slowly improve through today, but tomorrow, watch Indianapolis and Columbus, Ohio, Cleveland, Detroit, all expecting delays still in Minneapolis, and maybe some delays at Chicago and at Midway as we head on through tomorrow. And then the east, as the front comes in, right? We'll see some delays possible as we go through the day from wind in Albany and Philadelphia, Syracuse and Buffalo, and down near the D.C. airports. Reagan National, BWI, and Dulles all could see some delays. But here's those thunderstorms pushing through Chicago, maybe another round coming in later, and snow to the north in places like Duluth, where we've seen your blizzard conditions. And watch this. Well, looky there, right on cue. Duluth, Minnesota right now. 28 degrees, the winds are gusting to 47 miles per hour. And those gusty winds causing some damage, and it's going to stay nasty right through the nighttime hours tonight. But we're looking at a situation where, you know, through the nighttime hours while you're sleeping, it's still going to be going on, and it may still be going on tomorrow in the morning. Duluth's still looking pretty wintry here, too. Look at that. You can see the snow. If you look closely in the light there, it is still snowing, but the visibility is currently looking a little bit better. All right, as we jump in and we take a look at some cities and when we are going to see our snow coming to an end. You can see here in Minneapolis, probably got a few hours to go. And watch out as we go through tonight. Your darker blues where there may be some moderate or heavy snow up near Minneapolis. And you'll see mixed precipitation up in the UP of Michigan. But through early tomorrow morning, starting to wind down just a bit as the snow becomes a little lighter. But northern Minnesota, look at this, even around Duluth, into the early afternoon tomorrow, you could still be dealing with snow. Little light snow and snow showers, Minneapolis, the wind, temperature staying at or above freezing, so not big impacts as we go through tomorrow. As we watch another inch or so fall here through tomorrow morning, it's really not going to be too much in the way of accumulating snowfall. Duluth, though, look at this, 32 degrees until tomorrow afternoon when it gets to 34, and snow and wind in the forecast. This is 11 o'clock tomorrow night, where it may finally start to taper off. Finally seeing the last vestiges of the snow pull away, but maybe another 5 or 6 inches in some spots here. Another 3 or 4 as you get outside in west and north of Duluth, where the snow may still be coming down. Well, this powerful storm also had a severe side. Watch that. Yeah, that is an impressive lightning strike in Omaha. The Heartland getting blasted with wild weather last night as the complex of storms moved on and into the area, with Winter Storm Wesley's western side and warm side. As this moves on, we are bracing for a new round of severe weather. Let's go over to Carl now. And Carl, you hear the thunder, we saw the lightning. This wasn't a big severe weather outbreak, but still some stronger storms, but there's more to come.
A lot more to come. We're really concerned about Saturday. We could be talking about some long track or strong tornadoes in parts of the Mid-South in particular. We're going to be looking at a stronger system coming across Texas on Saturday. A lot of moisture being drawn up ahead of that. And so along with that moisture in the low-level warm and humid air, we have plenty of what is called instability. You can think of that as fuel for thunderstorms. And when you've got more of it, you tend to get taller storms. And taller storms tend to have a greater potential to be severe. So we've got plenty of instability coming up here on Saturday, but another really big part of what drives our severe threat, and particularly the tornado threat, is the low-level winds. We call that the low-level jet, and that's really going to be kicking in on Saturday. So you see the vectors there, you see how it's coming out of the south. Here's the surface winds on Saturday evening. I want you to notice the vectors in this case, coming out of the east here in Mississippi, coming out of the southeast into Louisiana. So then when we look at those low-level winds at 5,000 feet superimposed on the surface winds, we see that they're coming out of different directions. And when they come out of different directions like that, there's a rolling motion that occurs between those two layers. If you were to take one hand, put a pencil in your hand, and take another hand and go across it more rapidly like that with the pencil, well, the pencil's going to roll. So the same thing happens with the atmosphere. That rolling motion gets going, and then it gets ingested by storms that are developing. So they begin to rotate, and that's the beginning of the process. Very complicated process, but that's the beginning of the process that leads to tornadoes. So when we see that in the atmosphere combined with instability, we know there's a chance that we're going to be looking at some tornadoes. Now, that's not the only thing that we're concerned about. Here's the low-level jet. So it's starting to get going there Saturday around the middle of the day. So where those low-level winds are strongest is where you have the maximum potential for severe weather, particularly where you see the turning of the winds. Really starts to get going there on Saturday afternoon. right around the Arklatex, northern Louisiana. That's where the tornado potential is going to be greatest. But then, late on Saturday night, sun's going down, temperatures are cooling off, instability's coming down, the severe weather threat should be going down, right? Not in this case, because that low-level jet is going to be getting stronger at that time. What happens in the atmosphere is you get a lot of mixing during the day between the low levels and the surface, and that mixing stops when the sun goes down. The layers become more stratified, and that allows that low-level jet to get stronger. And when the low-level jet gets stronger, even if you have more modest storms with less instability, they can still produce tornadoes, which means that the upshot, all of that means that we could be talking about tornadoes late Saturday, overnight Saturday, and into early Sunday morning. So it's really important that you have a way to be notified. We're going to be live here on Saturday night, going through midnight. We'll extend if need be. And we want you to have a way to be aware of storms as you go to bed. Your phone is going to do that in a lot of cases. Whatever the case is, Ray, nocturnal tornadoes are 2.5 times more deadly, generally speaking. And so this is one of those parts of the country where they tend to be very, very bad indeed.
Yeah, and we'll continue to keep you updated. We update you on Wesley, so no reason to tune out, I guess, over the next few days, right through the end of the weekend, which is for some Palm Sunday. Now we're going to drill down just a little bit here, show you some timing in some of these cities. So if you're in and around these areas, let's show you what's going on in Shreveport and Louisiana. Tornadoes are likely, right? Strong tornadoes are possible, damaging winds and large hail. This is Saturday through Saturday evening, right? And a 6 out of 10, so a 60% chance of a tornado as we watch these storms come through. Look at Saturday morning, just some general showers. Then by about 3 o'clock, some stronger storms coming in. Those stronger storms will be accompanied by wind, hail, and potentially some isolated strong tornadoes. In the Little Rock area, Saturday through Saturday evening, wind, hail, chance of a tornado, only a 30% chance, so that chance is a little bit lower further north. Jackson, Mississippi is one area where we'll have a chance of tornado, a 40% chance here in our Torcom with damaging winds and hail also possible in some of these areas. Well, we are live tonight until 12 Eastern, 10 p.m. Mountain Time. Then we keep an eye on the dangers ahead. And ahead, we're going to take a look at the weather now that's heading on in.
So, Kim, you going?
All right, these aren't only just truckers. These are experienced long-haul truckers getting off of Interstate 29 to find shelter from a storm earlier this morning in Watertown in eastern South Dakota. Look at this. Listen to that. The city shut down plowing and sanding efforts shortly before midday due to deteriorating conditions and dangers posed to the road crews. Certainly looking at, Carl, here, some very dangerous conditions. Visibility's here at times down to, I can't see a thing. Impressive.
Yeah, just an amazing storm. And, when you talk about climatology of blizzards, this is actually within the range of the time in which we expect to see blizzards across the northern plains. This is Blizzard Alley, and it's a fairly long season, can start in November and continue all the way into April. So it's certainly not that unusual to get a blizzard in the northern plains at this time of the year. But this is definitely one of the stronger ones. It's got a lot of kick to it. You can really see that spin in the atmosphere and the water vapor, just a beautiful image of this powerful storm here. And let's take a look at some of the winds that continue to howl across the region. 40-mile-per-hour gusts there in Aberdeen, 31 in Sioux City, gusting now to 52 in Duluth. It has been strikingly consistent there across Duluth. Also now gusting to 33 miles per hour on the warm side of the storm in Milwaukee. So here's the model forecast going forward, showing you how the snow thins out through the day tomorrow in North and South Dakota, while the wind continues to pound that area. Still gusting 30 to 35 miles per hour in Fargo for a lot of the morning tomorrow, maybe kind of dialing back just a little bit into the afternoon, 20 to 25, somewhere in that vicinity. See how we're down to snow showers across most of the region at that time, with the exception of northern Minnesota. Then we'll even go into Friday evening, and the snow is just about gone at this point. But the winds are still there because this is such a strong low, and it's just not moving away very quickly. So it is definitely going to feel like winter for the next few days here across the northern plains. We've got another storm potentially on the way coming up next week. Ray, over to you.
And the Minnesota Department of Transportation crews sharing this video. Yeah, power pole on the left, right? Power lines, another power pole on the left, down, right? Stay home, stay off the roads. Blowing snow, zero visibility, making for a very dangerous drive. Now, sun's down, things are going to get worse before they get any better. Power pole again. So, strong winds, snow, near zero visibility, dangerous combination, especially if you're behind the wheel. Let's go back to Carl to explain why this is so hazardous and how you can stay safe.
Snow reflects about 85% of sunlight. That's about 5.5 times more than grass. During intense snowstorms, light bounces off the ground, clouds and falling snow. This creates a bright, milky whiteness that eliminates visual cues, like the horizon lines and shadows, which assist in depth perception and orientation. As a result, close-up vehicles and structures can appear far away. This compromised vision is especially dangerous while driving. Visibility in a whiteout can drop to just 10 feet, less than a car length. It takes an average driver about 0.7 of a second to react and brake. With only 10 feet of visibility, a car traveling at anything more than 6 miles an hour is at risk. So during the next snowstorm, keep your hands on the wheel, eyes on the road, and slow down.
You know about yellow snow, right? But look at what some residents of St. Cloud, Minnesota discovered when they got their first good look at the ground today. It's snow tinged tan, yellow, and brown. Turns out it's from a massive amount of dust picked up by strong winds in Texas, which got lofted up and mixed in over the upper Midwest. So, yeah, it's quite a bit of transport from the winds from this storm. It shows you how powerful those jet stream winds were. And another area affected by the falling snow here is Wesley, the storm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The snow, this hint of brown was kicked up hundreds of miles to South Texas, carried up by the winds and added to the mixture, winding up on the ground. So, yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Who knew? It's the first time I've seen that. Now let's talk about the difference between the spring snow, which we have here, and colder snow or winter snow, right? So winter snow versus spring snow. Smaller flakes in the wintertime, colder temperatures. And when those flakes are a little bit bigger, large wet flakes stick together as they come down. The ground, too. The ground is usually warm in the springtime, right? We get these storms and colder, which makes the snow accumulate quicker in the winter than it does in the springtime. And then the lower sun angle, too. So in the wintertime, the angle of the sun, the rays, the insolation coming in is not as sharp or not as high as it is in the summertime. So that sun coming in certainly does a better job at melting, so that higher sun angle sublimates the snow cover. So basically it gets rid of it quicker than it would if it was in the winter time. All right, we do invite you to stick around. Winter storm Wesley still dumping very heavy snowfall in the heart of the country. When we come back, we'll go in-depth city by city to time out some of the worst areas of snow and ice. And also coming up before we go tonight, we're going to have a severe weather update for storms coming this upcoming weekend.
Ranked #1 in customer satisfaction. Dish, tuned into you.
This is of a gustnado spewing dust as it passed a Colorado high school yesterday. The high school tennis coach caught these images. The National Weather Service reported the winds gusting and reaching 100 miles an hour. At the time, the storm caused some property damage, but no one was hurt. Thank you for staying with us as our special extended coverage of Winter Storm Wesley continues. A monster snowstorm that stretches more than 1,800 miles tonight, bringing heavy snow, dangerous winds, and near blizzard conditions to millions of people. I'm meteorologist Ray Stagik, joined by storm specialist Carl Parker. Well, our own Dave Malkoff has been in the worst of this storm in Duluth, Minnesota this evening.
Yeah, let me give you an idea of where we are. This is Duluth, Minnesota, which is right on the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is over there, over the bridge. And then this is Minnesota. That should be Lake Superior right behind me. But starting at noon today, that lake turned into a frozen solid ground, and it just flash froze right in front of us. Let me actually show you what it looked like at noon today. The water splashing and churning, but it was still liquid water, and what happened was that water was able to accumulate right there on the shoreline, and as it hit concrete structures or the boardwalk up here, it was flash freezing and just becoming this ice wall that you see behind us right now. The winds are gusting up to 58 miles an hour. There is a sustained wind of 40 miles an hour, but the city did take this precaution, and they made sure that they closed the schools, they closed all the services here, and closed some of the bus lines. Some of the beaches were closed as well. But one thing that was not closed was the Luke Combs concert, Grammy nominee, who is just about 18 minutes from here. That concert went on as planned. People came from their hotels. Some of them drove. Some of them took a Uber, very brave Uber drivers. And some of them, actually, we can confirm this, walked in this near blizzard condition between here and the concert. That guy must be good. We are here in Duluth, Minnesota, in the middle of Winter Storm Wesley, but in the springtime. I'm Dave Malkoff, the Weather Channel.
Hey, must be good, Carl, and he is good. I mean, our producer Kelly, big fan of Luke Combs, from what I hear. I mean, I was hoping she would come in and maybe hum a few bars for us, but I got nothing. But I heard $9,000 arena. I'm curious how many people actually show up.
I am so curious. And, you know, then our executive producer, Keith, said, well, maybe most of them went because they're in Duluth and they know how to deal with that kind of weather.
It's possible. So 9,000, it was sold out. That doesn't mean everybody went, but the tickets were all sold.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'm very curious to find out as well. It is amazing because it's hard to imagine going to a show in an environment like that. And, you know, it's not going to get much better anytime soon. It's going to be precisely as cold and windy and snowy in Duluth tomorrow. I'm going to show you the forecast here in the next few minutes, next couple of minutes. Here you see the low pressure center. This is a big part of why this is such a long-lasting event. That low pressure center has moved to the north by, I think, somewhere around 40 miles in the last 6 hours. So it's barely moving, and it's just so strong, and that's why we're going to be living with this wind for a long time to come. Winds now gusting to 35 in Rapid City, gusting to 40 miles per hour in Aberdeen, gusting to 52 in Duluth, and 38 miles per hour in Fargo. So it's not going to be quite as windy tomorrow, but it's still going to be really, really gusty out there. It's going to be incredibly wintry, gusting now to 33 in Milwaukee. So here's Duluth, and going through the next 24 hours, and you see how little it changes. Look at this. Winds gusting 60 to 75 miles per hour going through the next couple of hours here. We actually did see a wind gust to 70 miles per hour at some elevation on the top of a bridge in Duluth, but still way up there. Probably 40 to 50 miles per hour overnight tonight, 25 to 30 going into the middle of the morning tomorrow, and then not quite as windy by tomorrow night, but still windy. It's not gone because this low is just so strong. And of course, the wind combined with the snow, it's really a wind thing, but when you have some snow being blown or coming out of the sky, that's what reduces visibilities. That's a blizzard, and so blizzard warnings are up now in western parts of Minnesota, South Dakota, and also into North Dakota. So here is the forecast for the broader area. And again, you've got overnight tonight, still very strong wind, snow continuing. Snow's going to be thinning out, but continuing, gusting to 35, 40 in Fargo tomorrow morning. It's going to go like that for a lot of the day, still up to 25, 30 into the afternoon tomorrow. And then even as the snow is contracting, even as it's moving out to the northeast, it's still very windy tomorrow night and then even into Saturday morning as well. So it's just not going to feel very spring-like at all here in the next couple of days. And in the longer term, there is a potential for snow, but we think it's going to take aim more on the western lakes, not so much on the northern plains. This is a look at the European forecast model going into Sunday afternoon. And so some areas that didn't get as much snow this time, including Wisconsin, may be in for more by the time we go into Sunday. Ray, over to you.
Thanks, Carl. And when we come back, the threat for dangerous storms and tornadoes increasing as we get into the weekend, where we expect widespread severe weather this weekend, and why you can't let your guard down when you go to bed.
Mom, he's blinking.
Our clients come from other money managers. Fisher Investments, clearly better money management.
These power lines are getting a workout from the wind in Minnehaha County in South Dakota. Gusts up to 33 miles per hour. The power crew's busy making repairs in Sioux Falls area. The winds have knocked out power to thousands of customers in the last 24 hours, many whom are still waiting for service to be restored tonight. Well, the latest here shows Wesley now. Carl Parker winding up but slowly moving away.
Yeah, very slowly. I mean, that's really the key to what's going on with this storm. It's just not moving very fast at all. And for that reason, we're living with the effects, the incredible wind, the very heavy snow. It's just going to be there for a long period of time. This is a look at the water vapor imagery. And you see this sort of Byzantine pattern here caused by a whole series of lows within the larger upper low. Just an incredible atmospheric disturbance moving very slowly. And that slow movement is what enabled us to get these high totals here, talking about 1.5 feet in some parts of South Dakota. More to come across northern parts of Minnesota. Look at the long-lasting wind event here, maybe gusting 60 to 75 miles per hour in Duluth over the next couple of hours. The heaviest of snow is going to be from Duluth and on westward, maybe 5 to 8 inches of additional snow. Blizzard conditions, we've certainly seen that already today. Here's a model forecast showing you how this is going to play out. And we'll take it into tomorrow morning. You notice that the snow is thinning out in general, but we've still got these very strong winds on the backside of the low, even as that snow starts to go away. So it's still going to be gusting to 30, 35 miles per hour in Sioux City, as well as into Fargo, into Minneapolis, St. Paul. Not initially in Minneapolis, because the low's going to go right over you, but then on the backside of the system as it's coming through later on Friday, and then even into Saturday. It's such a big, strong system that's moving so slowly. It's just going to feel like winter for the next couple of days. Unfortunately, I know you're probably tired of it. I'm sure some people up here are ready to spit nails, but it's just going to be more of the same for the foreseeable future. And it's been quite a winter so far. We're plus 20 inches in Minneapolis and also in Green Bay and into Marquette. I'm sure a lot of people are ready to be done, Ray. We've got another system on the way this weekend. That one is going to track a little bit differently, so maybe snow in some areas that didn't get as much this time, including Iowa and also Wisconsin.
Yeah, and that'll be a change for them also. You know, it's been an okay winter there, but certainly something we'll keep an eye on. Thanks, Carl. St. Paul, Minnesota. Let's take a look. Yeah, I still see a little snow flying around. It's dark. It's cold. It's April, right, in the Midwest, I guess. Bracing for a little bit more snow to come on in. So I don't think you're quite done yet in St. Paul. But the damage has been done in some cities across the Midwest, right? As we've seen, Sioux Falls, you're above average by about 4.5 inches this year. You go down to Green Bay, you're above average by almost 20 inches. And Carl mentioned this next storm coming in this weekend could add to that total maybe. So yeah, certainly there could be places like Green Bay that see some wet snow. Right now the radar's showing not much around Green Bay, down near Chilton and Manitowoc. Just some spotty showers. More to come though as we go through tonight. Mixed precipitation and or rain. Combination of sleet mixed in there too, but not looking at much in the way of accumulation. I'd say probably wet roadways for the most part. As you go further north, 141, maybe a little bit slick late tonight for the drive-in tomorrow morning. Around Sioux Falls, still got to deal with this snow on the backside of the low, right? So here's low pressure. It'll go this way, and eventually it'll get out of here, but it's still going to take a little bit of time. Well, now new video coming in. Wrigley Field evacuated. Why? Where is it? Where is it? There it is. That's why, right? Lightning moving through Chicago tonight. They were on the warm side of Winter Storm Wesley. Lightning certainly having an impact here. They evacuated. They got back out onto the ball field, and they finish up yet? Yeah, they did. And Cubs won. Cubs won the ball game. So Carl, they were able to get that game in.
Yeah, good news. Yeah. And, always scary when you're at an event like that and you've got lightning coming in, but at least it wasn't a whole lot. No. Lightning. It was
about an hour?
Yeah, something like that, exactly. It's going to be really different across the southern parts of the plains and also into the Mid-South coming up this weekend. We've got a strong system coming through, a lot of moisture coming off the Gulf of Mexico. There's going to be enough instability to get storms really going. You think of instability as fuel for thunderstorms. So the more you have of it, the larger the storms get. The larger the storms get, the more potential they have to produce severe weather. Another really important part of what we're looking at coming up this weekend is the strong low-level jet. So our winds are going to be coming out of the east and southeast in parts of Louisiana and Mississippi and over towards Texas on Saturday, and coming out of the south at about 5,000 feet up. That's called the low-level jet. And so when you have that change in wind direction and also wind speed, because these winds at 5,000 feet are going to be very fast, that is what leads to a greater tornado potential. And so right now we've got a 6 out of 10 on the Torcon there in parts of Texas and also in Louisiana. And I want to show you how this evolves, because here's the low-level jet developing in the middle of the day on Saturday, getting stronger into the afternoon. So there could be some strong tornadoes developing on Saturday afternoon across parts of the Arklatex into northern Louisiana. And then into the evening, as temperatures are coming down, the sun has gone down, temperatures are falling, the instability is falling. In a lot of cases, you see the severe threat coming down. That may not happen in this case, because as the instability is coming down, you've got one parameter coming down, the low-level jet's going to be increasing. And that's pretty typical to see in the evening hours. It tends to strengthen at night when the atmosphere becomes more stratified. And so that could mean some nighttime tornadoes. Those nocturnal tornadoes are so dangerous, generally about 2.5 times more deadly than daytime tornadoes, and especially in this part of the world. So that's something to think about. Just keep that in mind. Mississippi and Alabama, this may be an event that goes well into the evening, maybe very late at night, possibly even overnight, and then even into the morning on Sunday, we could be looking at some additional rotating storms. So it's one of those things that we definitely want to keep a really close eye on as we get closer to the event. So it's going to be centered around the Arklatex on Saturday, but again, migrating east into the evening hours. And right now we've got a 6 out of 10 on our Torcon for northern Louisiana, as well as northeastern parts of Texas. Ray, over to you.
All right, Carl, thanks a lot. There are many key ingredients that create a severe weather outbreak. Mike Bettis explains.
There's a key component to the atmosphere we look at when forecasting severe weather, and it's known as wind shear. And there are two components to it: speed shear and directional shear. So let's first tackle directional shear. Let's say at the surface where you and I live, the winds are out of the south at 10 miles per hour. However, as you go tens of thousands of feet into the air, at maybe the jet stream level, those winds turn from the west. This is 90 degrees of directional shear, and it's this shear that causes the horizontal rotation of supercell thunderstorms. Now let's look at speed shear. Let's go back to our southerly winds. They're out of the south here at 10 miles per hour at the surface. However, go again up tens of thousands of feet to that jet stream level. Notice how the winds can go well in excess of 100 miles an hour. This speed shear causes a vertical rolling motion in the atmosphere. So it's that combination of speed shear and directional shear that is a favorable atmosphere for rotating supercell thunderstorms and potentially tornadoes.
Well, still to come tonight on our special coverage of Winter Storm Wesley, we're going to track not only severe weather threat, but some of the snow. Thunder and lightning, and the Winter Storm Wesley. This thunder snow event this morning as the system passed through in Holman, Wisconsin. Let's see the lightning, and just a few seconds later, that sounds like a jet, doesn't it? Thunder rolling in. This was just before dawn, just north of La Crosse. Carl.
Yeah, pretty amazing. You know, you have the layer of warmer air coming in. It's kind of a counterintuitive thing that you can get lightning and thunder when you've got such cold temperatures, but you have cold air at the surface and then warmer air coming in aloft, and that's where the instability is. That's the part of the thunderstorm that develops the lightning and thunder that's over top of that cold air that's sitting at the surface. So we've got this really powerful low. I know a lot of you are probably ready for some spring weather. Not going to get it anytime soon. The low is just going to take its sweet time moving out. So winds gusting 30 to 40 miles per hour right through tomorrow, and then even into the early part of Saturday for some parts of the upper Midwest. The low itself has probably moved somewhere on the order of about 40 to 50 miles in the last 6 hours. I mean, it is crawling as weather systems go, and that's why it's going to last so long. Winds still gusting 37 miles per hour in Aberdeen right now, as well as in Rapid City, 35 in Fargo, and 52 in Duluth. That's where it's been just crazy all day today, and winds now gusting to 29 in Minneapolis. We expect to see a lot more of the same. There you see the blizzard warnings that are still in effect in North and South Dakota, as well as into Minnesota. And here is the model forecast. So you're going to see really very little change in the wind all through the day tomorrow. Snow gradually sort of winding down, thinning out, getting better, but still continues to be quite windy, Ray. So, as I mentioned, not going to feel very much like spring anytime soon here.
No, it's not. I think with this storm, to me, the most amazing part of it is how slowly it's moving. I mean, we're talking about going on day 3 by tomorrow.
Right,
So,
yeah.
So there's still some impacts to be felt.
That and the fact that Luke Combs played tonight.
He did. I heard a rumor that Luke Combs did play tonight in Duluth. All right, snow is beginning to taper off in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul. Let's show you what conditions were like earlier with the Weather Channel's Kelly O'Hara.
The winds are still blowing and whipping up trouble here in downtown Minneapolis. It is rush hour right now. People headed home, people headed out of work, and you can see we're getting wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour. 24 hours into winter storm / spring storm Wesley. And let me tell you, it is miserable out right now. The big issue right now on the roads is all this slushy, yucky mess that is everywhere. And the temperatures right now hovering around the freezing mark. If it gets any colder than the 33 degrees it is right now, it could be pretty dangerous on the roads in the metro area. You can see people in their cars, traffic starting to fill up here on the roadways, people trying to head home. But again, if those temperatures drop, it could be dangerous. DOT is asking people to stay off the roads. If you don't have to be on the roads, don't get out there. That's because of the poor visibility in these high winds. Tractor trailers flipping over, power lines down in areas west, north, and south of us. That's because of this, just the intensity of the storm that is blowing through. But right now here in downtown Minneapolis, we got high winds. We have some sleet, some rain mixed in as well. And this storm isn't over anytime soon. For the Weather Channel, I'm Kelly O'Hara.
Thanks, Kelly. Weather balloons here. Getting an interesting workout in central Nebraska. Watch this. So they send this thing up, right? The scientists in the North Platte Weather Service office, right before dawn to check on the wind speeds, temperatures, and other factors crucial to the forecast. Look at that. Out there, that wind. Yeah, there's somebody holding on, but we're going to have to get it off. Good news there. No impacts from the storm on the weather balloon, but still managing to get the information. And impacts to your travel, right? So we're starting to get into a Friday now. And Friday, you're either getting out of town and leaving from a business trip or heading on maybe a trip for the weekend. Tomorrow, this low still sticking around. The wind's still 40 to 50 miles per hour with some of the gusts. So we could expect delays on the roadways. We are going to expect delays at the airports, too. So the wind gusts still in Minnesota and on through parts of Wisconsin also. And the interstate's still closed. Look at this, over 1,000 miles. I-90 in South Dakota. You get here near North Platte, 80 and 76. I-29. Probably the roughest here is you can still see the wind and the snow coming down. That's certainly going to be something we'd have to deal with into tonight. The blizzard conditions, heavy wet snow along I-90, gusty thunderstorms to the south. That one that went through Chicago. It's over with now. Nationwide total of cancellations right now, 966, 519 in Minnesota. Winter is refusing to give up, and high plains are breaking down. Where Winter Storm Wesley has already overachieved. And weather storm is going to cause some big issues in the hours to come. And when the upper Midwest might finally get a reprieve from this winter weather.
My time is thin.
For the best brands, the Home Depot. More saving, more doing.
We have been following an incredibly powerful low moving very slowly across the northern part of the plains. A huge windstorm, blizzard conditions across South Dakota, North Dakota, and also into Minnesota. That's not going to change very much at all through tonight. Tomorrow, gradually the snow showers begin to taper off, begin to wind down, but the wind will continue as the low is just slowly going to move off to the northeast. That low pressure center sitting right about there now, southwestern Minnesota and northwestern Iowa. Here's a look at some of the wind That continues at this hour. 37-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Aberdeen as well as in Rapid City. Duluth has been hammered by wind all night tonight, now gusting to 47 miles per hour. Winds gusting as high as 58 earlier tonight. A lot of power outages as well. It's been really tough all the way around. Here's the forecast in Duluth, looking for winds gusting 60 to 70 miles per hour going through the next couple of hours, 40 to 50 overnight tonight, 35 to 40 tomorrow, and then gradually tapering off. But it's still going to be windy even into late tomorrow. It's not going to be as bad, but it's still going to be windy. So we've got ongoing blizzard warnings, parts of Minnesota, North and South Dakota, and also looking at the forecast going forward here, we expect, this is how much snow we've seen, by the way, 1.5 feet in some parts of South Dakota. Forecast going forward, we expect that the wind, as I mentioned, is going to continue right through the day tomorrow. There's 10 o'clock in the morning, and then even into early Saturday as well. But the snow is going to be winding down. For the most part, it is over with at this point. So we're going to continue our coverage on this major winter storm starting tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. right here on the Weather Channel.
And now it's time for the latest winter storm update. Here's how the storm is progressing and what to expect in your area. Stay tuned to the Weather Channel for the most up-to-date information.
This looks like a